We go to parkings, iPads and like. iPads and car. I mean, that's.
You don't have to. They have the key downstairs. You can just tell me you need to get something on the car. You don't have to bring the car up. You may have to walk across the street.
Good afternoon. I'm going to call this City Council work session and regular meeting of July 7th, 2026 to order. Welcome everyone and those who are joining us online. If you would, please stand with me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Mike McPhee.
If it is your custom to bow, please join us in prayer. Father God, many are our plans, but it is your plans that prevail. You know each one of us here better than we know ourselves. All of us want this meeting to be a success, but Lord, you know what is best for all of us. Open up our hearts and minds that we may know that and hope to which we have been called upon. Give us boldness to speak what we have been placed in our hearts and help us to follow your will. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next on the agenda is the meeting agenda approval. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by raising your hand.
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have some presentations, applicant interviews for boards, commissions, and committees. And first, we have the Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer Authority Board of Directors, and I'm going to go each applicant according to alphabetical order. So, Mr. Simmer, you want to come up first? And before you get started, what I'd like for the benefit of the public, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, why you think you're the best candidate, and what you think you can bring to the board.
Yes, Mayor, of course. Thank you. Mayor Cromer, members of council, good afternoon. And thank you for the opportunity to talk with you a little bit about why I would like to serve on the Beaufort Jasper Water Sewer Authority Board. I think, as most of you know, I now have a little more time on my hands than I used to have. And I would like to continue to serve the public as I've done for pretty much all of my career during my 31 years in the Navy and then 5 years as an agency director in state government. And I think serving on the Beaufort Jasper board would be an excellent way to do that. I think I bring some expertise and some experience that could be valuable to that board and to the people of Beaufort that I would be representing. You know, one of the things that I did was I was the director of the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control until it was eliminated in 2024. And one of my responsibilities on that board was regulating and overseeing all of the public water and sewer systems in the state of South Carolina. As part of that, I learned a lot about the regulatory requirements for water and sewer systems, both at the state and federal level. But also I know that regulatory requirements are really a baseline. That's the minimum that you have to do. I would argue that our water and sewer system should be better than that. And one of the things that I certainly learned from that service was what makes an outstanding water and sewer authority, because we have some in the state. And I saw those and I saw what they did to get there, and also what challenges water and sewer groups can have and how they can overcome those. And I think that experience could be very useful in serving on the board. You know, another point is that, especially along the coast, and this is not just an issue for Beaufort and Jasper County, although it certainly is here, we have a lot of failing septic systems. Some of that is because of age. Much of that, though, is because of rising water tables. Septic systems that may have been fine when they are installed no longer are, because the water is up too high. And now you have to either raise that septic system up and build a specific type of engineered system, which is very expensive and sometimes out of the range of many people's affordability, or you have to hook them up to a city sewer system. And I think one of the things that I would advocate for, if I was fortunate enough to be selected for the board, is to identify those areas that have failing septic systems and try to prioritize those areas for that last mile of sewer system so they can link to a city sewer system if they so choose to the Beaufort Jasper system to replace their failing septic system. Another area that I think is important is that serving on the board means really leading a very large public organization. And obviously I have a good bit of experience with that, both in the Navy, where I was the Deputy Director and Chief Medical Officer for the TRICARE Health Plan. For those who don't know what that is, that's the military's health insurance program. Covers 9.5 million people, a very large organization. I led that for 6 years. And then, of course, in the United States service for 5 years, my agency had over 2,500 people located in locations all across the state. So I have a lot of experience with what it means to lead a large organization, both in terms of personnel. Obviously, one of the things that's very important for the board to do is to evaluate the performance of the senior executives of the Beaufort Jasper Authority. And that would be one of the things that I would take very seriously and focus very much on. If they're doing great, let's reward them. If they're not doing well, let's either help them improve, or if all else fails, possibly replace them. And so that would be a focus. Obviously, budget is very important. This is a public service. People pay for this service with their rates. So I would be very focused on, are we using the taxpayers' money appropriately? Are we being efficient? But at the same time, recognizing that we can't drop rates too low or we won't be able to do what we need to do. So that we have to maintain that balance. And that's something that I think my experience would help us get to. Also, very important, in an area where I think Beaufort Jasper maybe could serve a little improvement, is customer service. So I would be very focused on customer service. How are they treating their customers? This is something I heard when I was working with DHAC. And so that would certainly be an area that I would want to emphasize, and would certainly consider that for the people of the city of Beaufort. But obviously, I'm responsible for all the people in this case of Beaufort and Jasper counties, and we'd be looking at that. But one area that I always try to look at when I consider public service is, do I bring something that maybe isn't there now? And I think in this case I would, and that's public health experience. None of the current members of the Beaufort Jasper Water Sewer Authority Board that I can tell have any experience or any knowledge above, just lay knowledge of public health. And that's an area where I have a lot of expertise, a lot of experience. And I think that could be very valuable to the board and something they do not have now. And this could help with things like, you may have heard of forever chemicals, things like PFAS and PFOA that are in the news a lot and that are contaminants that commonly are found in drinking water. And the EPA has adopted some very stringent requirements for those, currently set to take effect in 2029. There is a petition to move that to 2031. But that's going to be a very expensive undertaking for the Water and Sewer Authority. And we're going to need to look at, how do we do that? What is the risk-benefit analysis to make sure that we're doing that in the right way and we're protecting people? But that we're at the same time that we're not dropping the level lower than we need to protect people's health. Another important issue that I think will come up is going to be fluoridation of water. That's a very controversial issue. There's bills in front of the state Senate and House right now on that. And I have a lot of knowledge about whether it's appropriate to fluoridate water at what levels. And again, could bring that experience to the board, which I think could be helpful as they make those decisions. Because obviously, in the end, clean water and proper treatment of sewage really is a public health issue. And that's why we do it. And so I think having that experience and knowledge would be helpful. The last, I think, very important thing I would do is I would serve as a liaison between all of you and the Water and Sewer Authority. I would certainly, before I weighed in on any major decision that came before the board, I'd want to talk with all of you and get your input and say, what is the city of Beaufort's position on this? Obviously, ultimately, I represent, as I said, everyone in Beaufort and Jasper County, but I would certainly weigh your input very heavily if I made those decisions. I would certainly want to bring information from the board to all of you as part of that liaison, make sure that you knew what was coming in front of the board. And that, my goal would be that you would never be surprised by any action the board would take. You might not always agree with it, but that you would always know that it was coming, because I think it's my responsibility to tell you that if you are gracious enough to nominate me for this role. The last thing I would say is, I know that obviously you make the recommendation, but then it goes to our legislative delegation, and ultimately the governor makes the appointment. Obviously, I worked with our legislative delegation on a number of environmental and public health issues. They know me well. The governor, likewise, and his staff, I've worked with them many times, so I certainly don't speak for them. But I think it's likely, if you made the recommendation for me, that they would concur with that and that the governor would ultimately appoint me. With that, again, I thank you very much for your time. I do hope you'll recommend me, and I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Council, any questions?
Pretty much answered mine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
Very
Stone.
thorough.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, next is Ms. Jessie White. Same question, Jesse, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you think you're the best candidate and what you can bring to the position.
Sure. Well, I will say this is my first experience being interviewed at a podium, so that's quite
It's
a
little
new experience. Thank you for your consideration, council members. My name is Jessie White, and I am a public interest environmental lawyer. I have dedicated my life to passionately protecting the environment to date, with over a decade of experience as a public interest lawyer. And I think that that is a unique and important skill set that would complement the Beaufort Jasper Board. I'm deeply familiar through my legal experience and expertise with the state and federal regulatory systems through the EPA requirements and the DES and Bureau of Coastal Management requirements. But another area that I think is uniquely applicable and helpful that I would bring to the table is my land use policy and planning experience, which is incredibly important when we're talking about the health of our waters. And it's critically important to helping maintain a healthy community and a healthy environment. As everybody I think knows, we are absolutely at a critical juncture right now in terms of the growth pressures and the growth that we're experiencing in this region, and being proactive, keeping the environment and both existing and future residents in mind is constantly at the forefront of my decision-making and strategic analysis. And I would bring that same proactive, solution-oriented problem solving to the board. I think that I could also serve as a great liaison. I like to believe I already have good relationships with each of you. I've worked with you through the past couple of years through my prior role with the Coastal Conservation League. And I think I've demonstrated that I am willing to be a very effective liaison. And I also have strong relationships with Beaufort Jasper board members, also with the delegation. I've worked with the governor's staff as well, and of course with many community members. So that grassroots advocacy, in addition to the legal experience, I think is what sets me apart. In addition to my professional experience in terms of volunteer experiences that are relevant, I've served on the May River Watershed Action Plan Advisory Committee for the past 5 or 6 years, I think. And through that, it's a recommending committee appointed by the Town of Bluffton Town Council, and we help make recommendations and strategize, come up with strategies for the town to implement in improving water quality, particularly in the May River, restoring shellfish harvesting, which has been closed for many years, and being proactive about future degradation. So one of a large component of the May River Watershed Action Plan is identifying failing sewer or failing septic and opportunities to connect to sewer, as well as retrofitting stormwater to improve permeability and likewise improve water quality. So those are projects that I've been intimately familiar with. I've also been supportive of Beaufort Jasper's ad hoc underserved committee and the Go To Sewer initiative, where they have identified communities that are on outdated or failing septic systems and can connect to sewer, and have been pursuing a collaborative multi-jurisdictional initiative in order to secure grant funding and public and private funding to connect those communities. They've done it so far with the Stony Point community in Bluffton, and they are gearing up to have I believe a ribbon cutting ceremony in Alljoy here soon. And there is a community in the Beaufort's jurisdiction that I think would be very relevant to this body's interest. In addition, just the sheer number of significant capital projects that I know the city has on its plate, as well as the Beaufort Jasper Board, and the entity as a whole, they are working quickly to be proactive, to make sure that we have infrastructure in place to meet the growth when it arrives, to hopefully get ahead of it. Working on concurrency legislation was something that I was intimately familiar with for the past couple of years, and we are very supportive of that and would like to see ways to get that implemented as soon as possible so that our region can stay flourishing. And also with the water canal, the Beaufort, all of northern Beaufort County and the city, obviously, and our military installations rely on this 18-mile water source that spans from the Savannah to the Chelsea plant. And there's, to date, not any coordinated land use planning and protection policies in place to secure that water asset. And that is a huge concern, I think, for the community and this is long-term sustainability to have access to clean water. And so that's something that I know the Beaufort Jasper leadership is thinking about, and I think I could bring relevant experience to help realize that as an actual vision. I have also served on a couple of boards, including my former condo HOA, which was a terrible experience, but also really informative. And not only was it just an HOA, it was an HOA going through litigation, which was extra fun. So I think I have a good temperament in terms of conflict resolution. I already said solutions oriented, but I'm very people focused and oriented, and I like to help secure solutions that are going to be beneficial to our communities and our environment, because in my mind, and I've advocated for this for the past 10 plus years, a healthy environment and healthy communities do go hand in hand. They are not mutually exclusive of one another, and you can meet and manage growth in a way that is supportive of that growth, but also directing it in the areas that it can be best absorbed while protecting our most sensitive resources for future generations.
Any questions for Jesse?
No questions, but because I don't have any questions, I do want to make a comment as it pertains to this particular recommendation that we'll make to the delegation. I'm just so thankful to be in this position to where we can have this caliber of candidates apply for such an important board. And I think that both of you have experience that can play very well into this role, one with the legal background and one from a environmental health, safety perspective. And so I'm just very grateful that both of you have applied and taken the time to articulate why you would be a good fit. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate your consideration.
Very much.
Thank you. Okay, next we have an interview for the Planning Commission, Mr. Michael Holly. Mr. Holly, the same question. Tell us a little bit about yourself, why you think you'd be the best candidate, and what you can bring to the table.
Yes, sir. My name is Mike Holly. My wife and I retired late last year, moved into Beaufort in December of last year. What brought us here, we've been vacationing here for several years, and very quickly, the lavender shop, I mentioned this to Kurt during an interview, the lavender shop that was in town. We were actually in the shop one day, and I can't remember if it was a 4th or Memorial Day, but either one, a parade starts up and comes downtown. You see everything from fire trucks to little kids waving flags. And it's the exact same thing that we did when we started this meeting. And once we saw that, we knew that this is the place that we need to retire at. We like this area, and we want to be here, and we want to be part of the community. I've been civilian my whole life. I served with Dominion Energy for 35 years in Virginia. I was on the nuclear side of the house, which means basically nuclear generation. I started off as a nuclear control room operator, refueling reactors, running the plant, taking equipment in and out of service, et cetera. This sounds exciting. It's not. I guess a little tedious after a while. I went from there, finished off my engineering degree, went into engineering, did test engineering, also a little bit of design engineering. And from there, I got into projects side of the house. For short term, ended up as one of the maintenance managers at North End Power Station for several years. And then afterwards, ended up in the secondary license renewal project management side of the house and finished off my degree or my career there and retiring, but again, back in October of last year. I bring a little different perspective. I don't bring so much military with me, but I do bring the nuclear side. It's an attention for detail. You have to have a profound respect for the reactor. You have to have a profound respect for public safety in the nuclear field. And I bring that with me, looking for the T's that have to be crossed, the I's that have to be dotted, and how can we help the people? And then you combine that with how much we enjoy this community and how much we want to be a part of it. I've been sitting around for the last few months looking for something to do. And this opportunity kind of reared its head very pleasantly and decided to go ahead and let's go for this. What I bring to the table with me, again, is that nuclear side of the house. I also bring with me project management skills. During the interview, I mentioned I kind of bring with a bit of an adversarial type of view because I was on the other side of the bench going before planning commissions in Louisa County, North Anna, looking to build parking lots and looking to the other things. So I kind of bring with it a little bit of a different side. But I also have the understanding of how projects work, project scopes of work, how planning is involved and what's necessary for that. We were actually chit-chatting up here before the meeting started. One of the things that kind of came up was we were looking at some of the political boards that were being advertised. And they were talking about, if you're tired of traffic, vote for me. This sounds great, but when you're a landlocked area and you only have so much amount of space and you have to play with all the other kittens that's in the box with you, that's not exactly an easy promise to keep. And I think that's where the planning board really comes in. How do we make this work? How do we look at this beautiful community? How do we look at everything from something as simple as a Spanish moss hanging from the trees that people drive hundreds of miles to come and see? How do we look at the ancient and old buildings that are here and that need to stay? How do we look at the culture that's here and needs to stay and be part of that, but at the same time, bring in the new and plan that work? How do we make sure it's come in an effective way? And most importantly, in a safe way and a cost-effective means. Am I the best candidate for the position? I'd love to tell you I am, but I don't know who the competition is. But I can tell you this, I bring a certain set of skills that will be very helpful and will work well. And I know I can do this position if you will give me that opportunity. Any questions, gentlemen?
Any questions? And thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, and lastly,
Matthew Hanks.
okay, Mr. Hanks, Matthew Hanks, this is for the Building Board of Appeals, Planning Commission, or the Zoning Board of Appeals. So as the others, tell us a little bit about yourself, why you think you're the best candidate and what you can bring to the position.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, council members. This is a little daunting. I put in the application because I'm at a point in my life where I want to be a part of the planning that goes on, not just be an average citizen. I think I've reached a maturity level now that I want to throw my hat in the ring for those things. And I know I put in the application for the 3 different pieces. But I really leaning and interested in the Zoning Board of Appeals. I believe it's significant to all of the changes both the Planning Commissioner is making and the growth in the community. And there are several factors that have impacted all of us, from our small communities and our areas of living that truly need to be examined. So a little bit about myself. I'm retired from the Navy, United States Navy, 20 years. I've been retired for 13 years. I retired in 2013. What brought me to Beaufort was my final 5 years in the Navy. In 2007, I arrived at the Naval Hospital. I was an independent duty corpsman. They trained me. Basically, it was a PA program for enlisted people to operate independent of medical officers. So I served on several independent platforms and several combat tours. And I got stationed in Beaufort, South Carolina, and I have to say it like that because I spent 6.5 years in Hawaii on a guided missile destroyer. I spent 18 months in Spain with a NATO unit. I get orders to little old Beaufort, South Carolina. I stepped on this place in 2007 and I bought my first home. I absolutely fell in love with it. I continue to fall in love with it every day. When I came back here, we had a townhouse. I met my wife in Spain. We got married in 2013 and we bought a second home. We just sold our townhome, fully paid off our home. I absolutely love the community and everything that the community brings to us. After retiring from the Navy, I achieved my master's in business administration. And 6 months after that, I acquired a master's of science in health informatics. I'm highly educated. I'm a data analyst. I'm a statistician. I know my application was short and brief, but I really wasn't expecting this. And I apologize for the brevity compared to what the other candidates brought. So I hope that doesn't put a black mark on me. But the Zoning Board of Appeals, I believe my skills with numbers in business and analytics as a statistician, the Zoning Board of Appeals is almost, if not more important than the Planning Commission, because the way we're growing, we need to also respect, as they all said, what the core of our community is. And I think I put in there that when you're doing numbers on a planning board or a zoning board of appeals, and you grab one statistic, like the Reimagine Rebo, and I'm shaking and I apologize. When you take out one number and say that we need 300 workforce houses, we need, or 300,000, and we need 300,000 homes built at 300,000 more, that little statistic can be manipulated. As a statistician, and you're all shaking your heads, if you don't have all the information, I can turn anything any one of you want, anybody with money, I can take anything you want and turn it into what you need it to be. So when you do all of these plannings and you just take out the information that you want, you're disregarding everything else. Our growth, gentlemen, has exceeded our infrastructure. We don't have enough police. We don't have enough firemen. We don't have enough EMS, our water, our electricity. We're straining everything on this growth based on statistic, the one statistic we manipulated. And I want to be part of the Zoning Board of Appeals to put in the proper research and get it right moving forward. We're encroaching on our small towns and our small neighborhoods with all of these massive apartments. The big plan next to Buffalo Wild Wings, we now have a police substation. Crime is rising as we keep building all of these homes. And I wonder if there was a statistic that showed how many of all these places that we've currently built and have planning to build, what is our occupancy rate right now? Have we stopped? Have we paused to look at, are they all full while we approve 300 more homes? That's all important. And the Zoning Board of Appeals takes that into consideration if we examine that, right? Because you're going to have to rezone. It's going to have to happen because you got to invade residential spaces. So that's my pitch to you, gentlemen, and I appreciate your time. And if you have any questions for me, I'll try if I don't pass out.
Any questions? Thank you very much for.
Thank you for stepping up and then having the courage to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit, even despite the nervousness that comes along with it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, before we get into proclamations and recognitions, I do want to take this opportunity to publicly recognize one of our employees, Nate Farah, who is our Director of Public Works. Nate, we understand you've got a new job down in Perry, Georgia, and he will be leaving us, but we want to let you know that we appreciate everything that you've done for the city of Beaufort. You've demonstrated your professionalism, your integrity, your commitment to serving your community has been great. And we want to give you an opportunity to tell us goodbye. I know you're leaving it, was it Friday? Is your last day?
Yes, sir. Friday is my last day here. So I was trying to sneak out of here. Mr. Marshall got this in on me around 4 o'clock today, so. I do want to say, Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you guys for entrusting in me and always being there to see things through and make sure Public Works was moving in the right direction. Mr. Marshall, Mr. Clausen, thank you guys for always answering the phone, whether it was early in the morning, late at night. You guys never wavered helping me get through, whether it was an employee, a resident, or a project. You guys were always there for me, and I appreciate it. To the other department heads, thank you guys for always working with me and not against me. I know a lot of times we were there to help you all, but you could make life a lot worse if you wanted to. And I truly appreciate you guys always being there. And it has always been a pleasure working there. To the residents of Beaufort, I have truly enjoyed these last 9 years. It has been a true honor to serve this city. And I know that the Public Works Department that we have today will continue to lead and will continue to make sure that this city moves forward and doesn't stay in where it is today. We're always here to make things function better and look better, and we're proud of what we do. So thank you, guys.
Thank
you. Thank you, Nate. Mr. Mayor, this is Mitch.
Thank you, Nate, and you're going to be missed. And we certainly do appreciate your service, and we wish you all the best.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I just want to mention, to Nate that I personally wish I could be there this evening to shake your hand and say goodbye, but I can't. So I've personally seen your work. I've seen you driving trucks after storms. I know that you're a person that's not afraid to get your hands dirty. So I was very disappointed when I learned that you were leaving.
He disconnected himself.
No, you're not.
Good.
You're still there.
Mitch, you still there?
No, he disconnected himself, Mayor.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yes, sir.
I think all of us share the same sentiment as Mitch. We really appreciate the years you gave us, and there will be some big shoes to fill.
You want to say anything else, Nate? You go back there dancing around.
I was just trying not to cry. So, it's been real being here, and my heart really, I got stationed here at 19 years old as a young U.S. Marine, and I've lived here longer than I did in Missouri growing up. So this place is more home than where I was born. All my kids have been born here, and it truly is hard for me to leave. But I have a dream, and I want to own some land one day, and I have an opportunity out there to own some land. So that's why I've decided to move. But I'll always be coming back and visiting, making sure that the roads are clean and the trees are trimmed.
Does that mean we can call you?
Yeah, get some overtime.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you,
one thing I will say really quickly is not only were we blessed to have you while we did, but I think that one of the most important things that I learned in my leadership roles at the fire department was to try to always leave something better than you found it. And I think I can honestly say that you're leaving the department and in the city in a better condition than when you came here, and that's due to your leadership. And so thank you for that. It's bittersweet because I hate to see you leave. I also am very grateful that you found an opportunity that is in line with your dreams, and I wish you and your family nothing but the best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nate.
Hey, Phil, it's Mitch again. I don't know where I dropped off at. I apologize.
All right, go
But
ahead.
I'll sum it up quickly. I just want to say quickly. I just want to say thanks to you, Nate. Whatever I said before was all good. Just really appreciate you, and I wish you Godspeed and very best to you and your family. Come back and visit.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nate. Appreciate it. Okay, next we have some a proclamation proclaiming July 25th through August 1st, 2026 as Gullah Geechee Nation Week.
Move accept.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, I understand that Queen Quet is not in town, so we will get this proclamation over to her. With that, we'll move on to the next item, which is recognition of Bill Suter for his service on the Design Review Board and the Planning Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Bill, you want to meet me down front?
Commending Bill Suter for serving on the Design Review Board and Planning Commission. Bill Suter served on the Design Review Board from November of 2021 through December of 2023, and on the Planning Commission from January of 24 through June of 26. Mr. Suter served on the Waterfront Advisory Committee as a Planning Commission representative from April of 25 through June of 2026. Mr. Suter devoted his efforts and energy in serving on these important boards. The significant contributions Bill Suter made as a member of these boards has helped us to support sustainable development practices and protect and enhance the design character and economic value of the city as a whole. Now, therefore, let it be resolved, the City Council of the City of Beaufort to express their gratitude and commend Bill Suter for his outstanding service on the city during his tenure. Thank you, sir, and congratulations.
Okay, next we have recognition of Matt McElhaney for his service on the Tourism Development Advisory Board.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Whereas Matt McElhaney served on the City of Beaufort's Tourism Development Advisory Board from July of 2020 to June of 2026, and Mr. McElhaney devoted his efforts and energy and service to this board. The contributions that Matt has made as a member of the Tourism Development Advisory Board helped to consolidate and guide the allocations of state accommodation tax funds to local organizations with the goal of improving tourism in our area. Now, therefore, let it be resolved, the City Council of the City of Beaufort to express their gratitude and commend Matt McElhaney for their outstanding service to the city during their tenure. In this day signed 7th day of July, 2026. Congratulations.
Okay, next we have recognition of Kevin Blank for his service on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Commending Kevin Blank for serving on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Kevin Blank served on the City of Beaufort's Zoning Board of Appeals from July of 2020 through June of 2026. Mr. Blank devoted his energies and efforts in service on this board and significantly contributes as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, to support sustainable development practices and protect and enhance the design character and economic value of the city, thereby promoting the quality of life in our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the City Council of the City of Beaufort, South Carolina duly expresses their gratitude and commends Kevin Blank for his outstanding service to the city during his tenure. Signed this 7th day, 2026. Thank you, sir.
Okay, next is public comment. Those who are going to speak, please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. And when you come to the podium, please give us your name and your address. We have several people who have signed up. I'm going to start with the first one, Laura Granquist. Here. Okay. Next is Tom Kevaney.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Kevaney. I live at 1799 Salem Road, and I'm here to speak against the proposed upzoning of 1556 Salem Road. I didn't want to speak extemporaneously, so I wrote down my thoughts, and I'm just going to read them to you. I promise you it'll be less than 5 minutes. The proposed upzoning of the property at 1556 Salem Road is inappropriate and should be denied for several reasons. First, as set forth in the staff report at page 130 through 132 of the agenda package, it's not consistent with the comprehensive plan that council adopted just a few years ago. Second, the property is inconsistent with the purpose of the RMS district, which is set forth in page 131 of the agenda packet. The purpose of the district is to accommodate regional and community commercial and business uses, as well as highway-oriented businesses. Salem Road is not a highway-oriented road. And the property that is around it is a contiguous two properties that are highway facing. So to say that properties on the north side or on the west side or even on the east side are commercial uses, they are, but well, other than on the east side, but the other sides are all contiguous to highway facing properties. There's the Vaden car dealership. Then there's on the other side, there's the overhang door or business that's already out there. And there's also a used car business that's on that side, on the north side. So the property is not highway oriented. It's a residential collector street. If you drive down Salem Road, you don't see a lot of businesses. Once you get right past B.E. Wheatley, it's all residential. Third, the suggestion that an error was made in categorizing the property as neighborhood residential under the current comp plan is wrong. At the time the comp plan was adopted, the street was used and primarily is still used for residential residences on Salem Road. And the number of those residences on Salem Road since the comp plan was adopted in 2017 has blown through the roof. Behind me, at 1799 Salem Road, as you continue to go down toward Battery Point, there are hundreds, I don't mean 800, hundreds of new houses on the old Bostic farm. It's called Salem Bay. In addition to that, on the right-hand side, as you go down the road, just on a little bit further down, is a brand new apartment complex called Garden Oaks. Huge, not 100, not 200, maybe 300, maybe even more than that, apartment complexes. And these aren't one-bedroom apartment complexes. These are more than one-bedroom apartment complexes. And the houses in Salem Bay are not just one-bedroom houses. They're multi-bedroom houses. So we're talking a significant number of houses, significant number of residences, significant number of traffic vehicle occurrences up and down that street. So while when the property was developed, whenever that was, commercial use may have been appropriate. At the time the comp plan was adopted by you, it was no longer commercial. It was residential, and it's continued to be that way, even more so. Fourth, once the property is upzoned, for whatever reason it is upzoned, mild as the current applicant may intend for it to be, the property can be used for all purposes that are permitted under that RMX use. And so I haven't gone through the code to find out what all of those are, but regional commercial businesses on a residential collector street, I suggest to you is simply not right. Fifth is not appropriate. Fifth, we have infrastructure challenges already at Salem Road and 170 and B.E. Wheatley on 170. It is very, very difficult to turn left out of Salem Road onto 170. In fact, I don't do it. I turn left onto B.E. Wheatley, and then I turn left onto 170, because that's the only way really rational people would go. But if you make this property commercial, and if the owner or tenant uses it for whatever maximum commercial purposes are available, it would only exacerbate an already very bad situation. Number one. And number two, council has recently recognized the problems we have at that intersection, because council adopted a resolution suggesting a realignment and reconfiguration of Salem Road, of the traffic coming out of Publix, of the Spanish Moss Trail, and of Neal Road. And then finally, and with respect to the city staff, who I have the utmost respect for, I just respectfully disagree with them that the proposed upzoning does not satisfy the requirements of the code that council has adopted. And there are a series of, like, I think 5 criteria, and they are all set forth on in your packet at page 133. I would say that the upzoning is not consistent with the comp plan and the master plan, and staff agrees with that. But I would say that the upzoning is not compatible with the upzoning is not compatible with the present zoning and with conforming uses of nearby property or with the character of the neighborhood. The upzoning is not suitable. While RMX uses of the property may have been appropriate when the building was constructed, the land itself is not appropriate for RMX uses in the future and even now. And the applicant acknowledges that the existing building itself isn't suitable. It will require significant renovations, and I suspect may even need to be demolished and replaced. And I think there's maybe even some discussion of that in the staff report. And I know that there's some discussion of the next factor, which is that the zoning is.
Can you
Wrap it up. It's
Actually, wrap it.
compatible with the natural features of the property. It's not. In fact, staff acknowledges that it's in the flood zone. It will have the upzoning will adversely affect the marketability of surrounding properties, and it will also exacerbate already existing infrastructure problems like with the roads. So for these reasons, I ask you to deny the upzoning, and I apologize for going over. I didn't think I would. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have Mr. Paul Trask.
Paul Trask, 610 Bladen Street. Good afternoon. Very briefly, executive session. I've spoken to you before about my concerns with matters coming to executive session. There's just not enough of a description of what's going to go on. I think that I know that executive session is optional. This material should be released by the city. It should be made public. It seems like when things go haywire with the city, it happens in executive session. The prime example would be the lease with Safe Harbor. So that's what I'm going to say about that. Now, I want to speak about this rezoning as well. Staff followed the rules, and the Planning Commission voted and sent it to you, recommending approval. Here's the problem. Whether it's 500 feet or 1,000 feet of notice, it's not sufficient in this particular case because you've got all of these people that are traveling up and down Salem Road that live in all these neighborhoods that Tom Kevedy just told you about and that you know are there. The infrastructure on that road is inadequate, and the notice provision alone should be cause for you to deny this rezoning because people have no idea what's getting ready to happen. The people that live back there and who are going to be affected. Also, very importantly, you're going to do a comp plan review. That's coming. That's going to go to the Planning Commission. It seems to me backwards to be considering this rezoning at this time when it hasn't even gone for comp plan review. As Tom Kevin's told you, RMX would open the door whether the applicant's going to run his window business. Once that rezoning takes place, anything permitted under RMX could happen. I'm just going to ask you to, I know you voted for it in first reading. I think it's also a mistake in a rezoning like this to have public hearing and first reading at the same time. There needs to be more of an opportunity for the public to come in. People in Salem Point, Battery Point, Salem Bay, these apartment complexes who are going to be directly impacted by this rezoning and by the possibility of more intense RMX uses. And he's right. Tom's right. It's not a highway. It is a very local, really a residential feeder street. That's what it is. So I'm going to ask you to turn it down. I think the applicant can find a more suitable location. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trask. Okay, next we have Amanda Patel.
Good evening. You know, the funny thing about the truth is it doesn't stay buried forever. It has a nasty habit of clawing its way back into the daylight. For almost a year, the people of this city were led to believe that the city's FOIA breach involving more than 9,000 unredacted pages was shared only with the original requester and Councilman Josh Scalati. Less than 2 weeks ago, we learned there was more to this story. Our own city manager, Scott Marshall, and the former deputy city manager also received the very same link to those records. So for almost a year, the public did not have the full picture. Now, if you've been paying attention to what I've started to call the city's purposeful, organized chaos, you probably noticed the pattern. Every problem gets wrapped in a prettier word: mishap, oversight, error, miscommunication. Funny how accountability is always the one word that's missing. I was almost surprised, though, that Scott did not call this another mistake, but he couldn't because the records wouldn't let him. The facts didn't change, only the story did. Even on February 12th, after public comment, you, Mr. Marshall, sat right there and repeated that version of events that only the original requester and Scalati received the FOIA. Yet the records show that you and JJ also received that very same link. I say this because the public record is important, and what gets left out of the story matters just as much as what gets put into it. And the public record isn't an article, which I do thank Ben for. He's a summer intern, and he reached out to me, and I do appreciate him reporting on this because I do have this internal belief that somehow or some way that the narrative, even with the media, is being controlled. But I'll save that for another day. The public record is what this city says. It's what you say. It's what this council says. It's the official record the people are asked to trust. If you can't establish what you read, what you didn't read, or whether you opened the record or not, I would leave that part out. Because somewhere inside those records was the unredacted forensic interview of another 12-year-old girl. A child whose privacy depended on this city getting it right. And I am not talking about the 12-year-old whose family requested the original FOIA. That interview came to light because WSAV reported it. The same reporter, this city, Scott Marshall, took pride in letting us know that he hired to serve as its public information officer. The same position once held by someone who recently said publicly that she would not be the scapegoat for city leadership. Ignoring an infection has never cured one. Neither has avoiding the truth. For almost a year, the city has been treating the symptoms instead of the cause, and that's why the wound is still open. Tonight, you will meet in executive session. Maybe you'll correct the record. I've been told that you guys don't listen. Maybe you'll choose not to. Either way, the truth has a way of catching up. But I do have one simple question for this council, which I highly doubt I will get a response to, or I will read it in the paper. I will see you guys publishing it on your website, along with that open letter that you penned a long time ago that was drafted by Mr. Marshall. Were you aware that Scott Marshall and JJ Suave received that FOIA link? If the answer is yes, when? Was it when I emailed y'all? When it got reported? Why has the public record yet to be corrected? Because we all know that the story has been narrowed in on the family that requested the document and your councilman, I don't know if you call him your colleague, I don't know what the professional language is, but you allowed the light to shine on him. And why he hasn't said anything is beyond me. So I'm almost thinking you guys didn't know. Because he did reply to my email and he did not know.
Can you wrap it
And
up?
I'm sorry, in this room, going back to February 12th, I have the recording and I can play it all for you. The city manager, after public comment, took the initiative to address my friend who ended up finishing my statement. But he was very passionate. You could hear the shaking in his voice. That the only people that received that FOIA was the original requester and who? Scolati. It wasn't corrected. That was February 12th.
Can you wrap this up?
And I will. If you knew, someone should have corrected the record because that's what public servants are supposed to do. Governments earn trust by telling the whole truth, by correcting the record when it is wrong, by remembering that every decision made in this room affects the people sitting here and the people that are working, the people that are at baseball practices, taking care of their children. And I will leave you with this. I'm not going away. And it's not because I enjoy this, not because I have nothing better to do. I'm staying because buried beneath the city's mistakes are children who never asked to become part of this story. Children whose privacy should have been protected. And parents, because, in the great state of South Carolina, we value the rights of parents. That's the best part, I think. Raising my two children in this state is my rights to choose for my two children. The children whose privacy was violated in that FOIA breach, they have the right to know that is not your place or your place to control the narrative.
Are you almost
And hold up. The truth belongs to them. Until they have it, I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep commenting on your social media. I'm going to keep reaching out to government organizations. I'm going to continue fighting because I know you have someone in your life that you care about. You care about the deer that was in front of your neighbor's driveway. You were offering money out of your pocket. Just imagine if you took that energy and you used it to advocate for those children in that FOIA, or you spoke on this, because I emailed you, I asked you as well, to give me your opinion on the investigation. Public record. I mean, I was not asking you to tell me about what you guys are discussing with your high price tag attorneys, just your opinion. Can't even give me that, but you can go on Facebook, you can make an AI post asking for pies, letting us know that you like cherry pies, which I said,
I've been very generous.
hold
Can you
on.
please
But,
end this.
but no, because I think that
You
guys, hold on, and Mayor, I'm gonna walk out, I will leave, hold on. Children, you're laughing, sir, and I'm gonna tell you, you're laughing. No, not you, the gentleman behind you. Let me tell you something. There is a power, this community, let me tell you.
I'm going to have to cut you off if you can't.
This, so, Mayor,
You can come back.
I would like to know why any individual would laugh about what happened or what I'm even speaking about. And that's the problem. Mayor Cromer, I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate you taking my emails and hopefully reading them. And I hope, Scott, that you take in what I've said as well. And if you decide to make a comment later, I will be here, sitting here waiting for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Cindy Phillips.
Good evening. I have a much lighter topic, no disrespect at all.
Can you give us your name
But
and address for
it's
the record?
very difficult to change gears. I'm Cindy Phillips and I live on Fraser Drive. Today, I'm here to examine a matter of importance to me, the delicate balance between the protection of our natural tree canopies, particularly our majestic live oaks, and the electric infrastructure that powers our community. If I were the Lorax, I would speak for the trees. Our natural tree canopies are more than just a collection of branches and leaves. They're living symbols of our heritage, deeply rooted in our culture, our city, and our environment. Live oaks with their sprawling branches and enduring presence are a testament of the resilience and the beauty of our city. In the low country of South Carolina, these live oaks grow at a rate of about 12 to 24 inches a year, slowly but surely extending their reach and their influence. However, at growth rates such as these, their threat does not equal their demise. In traveling the areas of North Street, Fraser Drive, Harrington, Green Street, and Calhoun, among others, we as neighbors can see the care with which our tree canopy was assaulted. Lest we forget, the trees provide us with countless benefits. Environmental health, trees improve air quality, they reduce urban heat, which I believe we can all admit we are experiencing a heavy dose of at the moment, and they support biodiversity. They're not just decorative, they're essential to our well-being. Aesthetic value, they enhance our landscapes and our properties, providing shade and contributing to the scenic beauty of our surroundings. Imagine, if you will, our streets with their calming presence. When I walked down my road, I once felt a secured and canopied street. The live oaks reached over and they shielded my way. Now I'm experiencing light pollution and concentrated heat as the day wears into the evening. Our windows require blackout curtains where the trees once shielded them. There's cultural significance. Many trees are historical landmarks representing the passage of time and the continuity and the health of our communities. They're the storytellers of our past, if only we would listen. Also important is our electrical infrastructure, which serves as the spine of modern society. Reliable power lines are essential. They're for safety and security, ensuring homes, businesses, and emergency services have the energy that they need. Economic stability, powering industries and fostering economic growth. Our economy's gears are greased by the energy that we have learned to rely on. Daily convenience, enabling the technologies and comforts that define our daily lives. From morning coffee to evening suppers, electricity is the unseen force that powers our routines. Our homes and our workplaces are lit and cooled because of the work of our linemen and our power companies' administrations. The challenge before us is to find a balance between preserving our natural environment and maintaining a healthy electric infrastructure. Here are a few considerations. Innovative design solutions, employing creative engineering techniques such as underground power lines in the more sensitive areas, can help minimize the conflict with our natural landscape. Regular maintenance and pruning, implementing strategic tree trimming programs at perhaps a more regular interval and less aggressive outcome than what we have just seen. It ensures that the trees are kept at a safe distance from power lines without compromising their health and aesthetic values. Safe distances do not equal full rights of way. As we have seen, some areas are experiencing extreme cutting measures. Community engagement and education, involving residents in the planning process and educating them about the importance of both trees and power infrastructure can foster a sense of shared responsibility. When neighbors are informed, they care. And when they care, they act and they support. In the past, we've seen communities informed and involved. I would like to see this consistent practice in every neighborhood, even when it may seem inconvenient or unnecessary. We all care about our neighborhoods. Collaborative partnerships, encouraging cooperation between utility companies, environmental groups, concerned citizens, and local governments can lead to a more comprehensive and sustainable solution. Working together, we are stronger. In conclusion, it is our responsibility to steward both our natural and our built resources wisely. By valuing our tree canopies and investing in our electrical infrastructure, we can create communities that are not only functional and safe, but also beautiful and valued. Let's work together to ensure that future generations inherit a Beaufort where coordination between nature and technology is not only possible, but celebrated. I appreciate your time, your responses to my concerns, and your service to the city. Thank you.
Perfect timing.
Okay, next we have Ms. Felice Lamarca.
Felice Lamarca, 802 Godfrey Street. I think I still live there. I had a good experience today. I had a client who wants to move here and has picked Beaufort because it is smaller, laid back, seems to be special, she said. So I took her around to the areas that I thought she would like. She's a historic preservation person and a neighborhood person. And it reminded me of how much I love this place and why I'm here. And why I'm here, which is oftentimes a thorn in your side, but you took the job, right? Okay, I'm tired of executive session. I'm really tired of it. You do it entirely too much. And pursuant to Title 30, discussion of negotiations incident to proposed contractual arrangements and proposed sale or purchase of property. Why is that a secret from the citizens? Legal advice, legal claims, FOIA investigation, Parcel K in the Beaufort Commerce Park, which you know is not, I am not a fan of the Commerce Park. You do anything in executive session regarding that park, and I call foul. I want to be a part of that meeting. I want to be there. You can swear me to secrecy. And that's what it is, secret meeting. Secret talks. Got to stop it. We're noticing, and we're noticing it a lot. And Ms. Patel did a fabulous job talking about truth. You don't have to run from the truth or hide the truth if you're conducting our business in public. That's how much I love this place, and I hope you do too.
Thank you, Ms. Lamarca. Okay, next and last, we have Robin Coppernace.
Robin Copperness. I live at 2423 Pigeon Point Road. I'm here to talk about the current tree trimming being done by Dominion, which is happening in Pigeon Point as well as other places, and how disappointed I am about what's going on. And the state of the streets now, even today, going down Pigeon Point Road, what used to be a lovely canopy is now like solid heat and sunshine all the way down. The trees have been butchered. There's no other way to describe it. I've taken lots of photos. I did write a letter to Scott Marshall, and he very kindly wrote back, and he pretty much explained that you all are powerless against Dominion, which is really kind of depressing because Beaufort is a beautiful place, and a lot of its beauty is the trees. and they're being destroyed all over the town. But what's really upsetting is that back in 2006, when you all were installing these transmission lines through the downtown area and Calhoun Street down Pigeon Point, there was a lot of charrettes that went on, public meetings, and we were promised that if we agreed to have these transmission lines through the neighborhood, that all of the other power poles would be removed and all of the power lines would be put up high so that the tree canopy would grow underneath and you wouldn't see the transmission poles or the transmission lines. And that is the only reason that we agreed. We said, well, okay, there was beautiful photographs and drawings showing us what this whole area would look like. And we thought, well, it's not so bad. I mean, we didn't want it, but we thought, okay, we can live with it. Well, we were lied to. It plain and simple lie, because it didn't happen. Those poles are still here. In fact,
They saw it off the top of the
they
pole.
saw it off the top of them. So now we have double the amount of poles and it's just as ugly. And now Dominion has now come in and cut back not only right at the power lines, but they've cut back at least 50 to 75 feet into people's properties so that you really can see those transmission poles now. And I'd like to know what happened. I went online to try and find the minutes from those meetings from 2006. Well, apparently we have to get a FOIA request to get the archives for that. I know a few years ago, I tried to get the pictures that were online. There were these beautiful conceptuals of what it was all gonna look like. They have disappeared. And so what's going on? Somebody dropped the ball, and I'm curious as to who.
And is there a way to revisit that? Gotta be a way we could revisit that.
So,
We're going to be discussing that in just a minute.
okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Well, we still have public comment. Anyone else wish to speak?
Mr. Trask is online, Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Trask?
Hi, Graham Trask, 1211 Bay Street. I want to talk about three things. Dominion trees, which Mrs. Copernicus talked about. And then I want to talk about executive session and the two topics in executive session. But let's start with trees. City council and the city managers are not powerless in the Dominion tree cutting. They say they are, but they don't want to take the issue on. And this points to a general theme of cowardice. We have a city council who are cowards. They won't stand up to their city manager, and they won't stand up for the citizens and residents of Beaufort. Robin, Dominion came through my neighborhood about 5 years ago, and tried to do the same thing. You know what we had to do? We had to stand in front of their trucks to stop them from destroying the trees, because the city would not do anything. That's what it's going to take, because our city are cowards. Whatever they're going to tell you tonight, Robin, is what's called BS. It's just a narrative so you go away. They've been trying to do it with Ms. Patel. Fortunately, and I believe her, she's not going away. And that brings me to the two executive session discussion points, which, as Mrs. Lamarca so eloquently said, should not be executive session topics. First, let's talk about the City Commerce Park and Parcel K. I sure hope that John O'Toole isn't coming into that executive session asking for $1 million or any money to give to some spec developer so they'll come in and try to so that you can sell, quote unquote, sell a parcel of land in the Commerce Park. None of those discussions on that Commerce Park should be in executive session. The only reason it is because you're cowards. Because you don't want to face the residents of Beaufort. So you want to keep it secret. Which brings me to the final item, which is the FOIA investigation. So, it's been a year. You're supposedly investigating, but I understand that the lawyer who's doing the investigation is actually out on the street trying to whitewash things for the city. So in fact, the plan is starting to be operationalized. The investigation is starting to be operationalized right under our nose. And you haven't even come clean. And you know it. Well, let me tell you this. Things are closing in on you guys. Things are closing in. This FOIA case is not just your investigation, but it's somebody else's. It's mine. And I got the information. And unless you guys come clean, it's going to get a whole lot worse. So I implore you to get this stuff out into the open, release the results of the investigation, tell people what you're doing, because if it has to come out in other ways, it's not going to look so good. And I sure hope Ms. Patel continues to speak every single council meeting to keep it on your radar screen so that you guys can't hide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Trask. Anyone else before I move on? Okay.
Mayor, I do think there was one more online that wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, Mark, they just raised their hand.
Who's that?
Mayor.
Mayor Deckard,
Okay.
can y'all hear me?
Yes, Ms. Decker, go ahead.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to council. I too am under the impression that there's an item in executive session that I think belongs in the public realm, and I think it's about the BCEDC and some kind of a property purchase or some kind of remuneration they're getting from the city. I don't know, but I don't know why it's an executive session, and I don't think it's labeled correctly. And I think you should check with the city attorney as to how that ended up in executive session and if it's properly notified to the public as to the substance of it. But my actual question is, I came to city council a month ago and I asked a very simple question. I said, why did the BCEDC pay $14,000 for another organization's rent? And I actually have an email from Mr. O'Toole that was forwarded to me about this rent payment. And the email says, and I'm happy to email this to all of you after I speak. We received a request on September 9th, 2025, relative to the Blackwoody rent payments. We have checked emails and text. Beyond the record of the payments, there are no documents in response to this request. The BCEDC has consistently kept its total rent payments below the budget amount, below what was previously paying at Regis, and staff had communicated its partnership with Blackwoody verbally to board members. Hey, first of all, that's a lot of nonsense word salad. Who cares whether the BCEDC kept their rent payments below their budget? That doesn't mean they can pay someone else's rent. But more to the point, Mayor, you're on the board of the BCEDC. Did you approve the director paying another organization's rent? I mean, it has nothing to do with your bylaws, has nothing to do with the mission. I mean,
I was not on the board at that time.
Well, the rent payments were made during your time on the board. These were monthly payments, but regardless, my question is, I want to know how you can consider giving any money to any organization that is using taxpayer money for a purpose that is not in their mission statement. I mean, we're not talking about $4. We're talking about $14,000, number one. And I'd like to know how that's any different from, I'm being facetious here, the executive director going to a liquor store and buying $14,000 worth of liquor and having a party at his house. What's the difference? If it's an improper purpose, then would you not agree, especially since one of the council members is on the board? And the executive director said this was communicated verbally to board members. I mean, there are no documents for this. There's no record of any approval. I think this is a lot of taxpayer money that we have no answer to. So I would ask that you get an answer to why this money was spent on an outside organization, on a third party. It's irresponsible. It isn't a part of the organization's proper expenditures, at least as far as I know. And I've read the bylaws. So before you go into executive session to discuss giving more money to this organization, can we at least get an answer about the $14,000? This is the second time I've raised it to this council, and I think the public deserves an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Got one.
Right over here.
Oh, yes, sir. Give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Randy Martin. I'm the gentleman that is under contract to buy 1556 Salem Road, which has been discussed tonight. To set the record straight, I'm not a developer. I'm just a business owner in the city of Beaufort that's needing a little more space. Thought I was doing something that the community would be proud to have, an old building redone, brought back to life and operating. Didn't think there would be people that would be against that. For the last 5 years, since we started the business, we've been located directly across the street, probably in one of Mr. Trask's kin folks in his building. So as far as things getting busier on Salem Road, the busyness comes from Salem subdivision, new apartments being zoned for next door to that property. We have 7 employees total. All right, we plan on splitting it in 3, renting out warehouse space and some retail space. Similar companies would go in there, probably would have about the same number of employees. We don't anticipate manufacturing because we can't. That was part of not going for a light commercial zoning. So we settled for the one. It's basically got a commercial price tag with a residential zoning. And that was found out later in the process. Everyone was kind of surprised that it was zoned, even the owners weren't aware of it. It was returned to the zoning of T4N. So just to clear the air, what we're looking to do is to establish our business there, which is selling windows and doors to builders and homeowners. We've been right across the street operating for 5 years as it is. So we're not going to add anything other than moving across the street. And that's kind of our intentions for the property. So if there are any questions about it, I'd be happy to entertain that to you. Just make sure that the right and correct information is out there. If you all do turn it down, then I'll probably walk and probably leave Beaufort and have to look for space elsewhere, because there is a very much of a lack of loading docks available in the city. So it forces us to have to go towards Okatee, towards Bluffton and moving in that area. So any questions? I'd be happy to entertain it. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Thank you. This is mainly public comment, so thank you, Mr. Martin. Okay, next on the agenda is a workshop item, Dominion Energy Vegetation Management Program update. Scott, do you want to brief everybody on this? Don't blame me.
But I will. Dominion is not. Right. Yeah, if you could just bring up the slideshow. Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, we did invite Dominion to take part in this discussion and provide answers to questions that not only you have, but the public has, and rightfully so. They declined, stating a corporate policy that prefers they not address forums like this. And so I come to you tonight as the messenger, not the message giver. This information is presented in hopes that we better inform the public about what is going to happen. And in spite of some of the comments you heard here earlier this evening, there is very little the city can do about this. These are utility right-of-ways. I have fought this battle in other jurisdictions before and lost. We've gotten state legislators involved with Dominion Corporate, and we have lost. So I speak from experience when I say there is very little control the city has over how these trees are trimmed. I don't want to speak for council, but I'm pretty confident that many of you feel the way that I do, and you don't like the way these trees look. But they are trimmed every 5 years. They are trimmed to keep us from losing power during storms, and they grow back. So there's a lot of shock value involved when trees are in full bloom and they're beautiful, and you leave your house to go to work in the morning, you come home in the evening, all the green's gone and the branches are hacked back, and it looks horrible. There's no getting around that. So the point of tonight is just to try to provide a little education on why that happens and what can be expected going forward. Again, I am the messenger. I'm not the message giver. The information I'm going to present to you tonight was cut and pasted from other information that Dominion Energy has publicly available. So again, the purpose of the program really is to maintain safe and reliable electric service. That's to minimize outages during storm, to be sure we have continuous power as much as possible. So the object is also to reduce outages and service interruptions, is to improve system reliability and resiliency during storms and afterward. And it's also to protect employee safety, public safety, and utility infrastructure while they are doing the trimming. The current status as we know it right now is that transmission line trimming activities are nearing completion. Transmission lines are the larger lines that carry high voltages of electricity between substations into neighborhoods. And then you have distribution lines which distribute the power within neighborhoods to the individual utility customers. The distribution line trimming is anticipated to begin in late July. We received an update just today that the contractor who is doing the trimming right now for Dominion is targeting Monday, July 13th to begin work in the Pigeon Point area. That may get delayed a little bit, but in the meantime, we are continuing to have regular coordination meetings between our public works staff and between the individuals at Dominion who are in charge of overseeing the trimming program. And we have our public information officer engaged to provide information as soon as we can regarding where trees are going to be trimmed and when they're going to be trimmed. The cycle runs on 5 years. That's why Mr. Trask was absolutely correct. If you remembered it was 5 years ago, it's because it was 5 years ago. That's how often these trees are trimmed. And so they have to be trimmed for a 5-year cycle. Dominion's policy is that they will notify customers 2 weeks ahead of scheduled trimming. And they tell us that the way they do this is they reach the customer by the same means that the customer receives their monthly utility bill. So if they receive it via email or electronically, then they're going to transmit this information regarding the tree trimming electronically. If they receive it by mail, they're going to send it in the mail. The trees are generally pruned to approximately the same extent as the previous cycle. And the certified line clearance professionals evaluate each tree individually. These trees are trimmed in accordance with the ANSI A3000 standards, which are available to view on the Dominion website. And I think I've got that website in this presentation somewhere. Some may require more substantial pruning than in previous cycles. Sometimes when you trim a tree, you have to trim it back a little further than what you would feel like is absolutely necessary for the health of the tree, or else the tree will not grow back correctly, or it may impair the tree to grow again at all. Again, more extensive pruning sometimes can be necessary to maintain required clearances, to address safety concerns, and to promote the long-term tree health, as I just spoke of. Dominion likes to use the right tree, right place. They have a handout to that effect. If you go into the agenda packet, those handouts are in the packet. Residents are encouraged to plant appropriate species near utility lines. What we see a lot of times in neighborhoods, and I don't know how many of these neighborhoods in our city qualify under this, but a lot of times these trees are planted before the power lines go in. And so then you have an inherent conflict years later when the tree grows up into the power lines. There's very little option left except to trim the tree away from the line. Residents are encouraged to always contact 811 before digging and are reminded that proper tree placement reduces outages and improves storm resilience. That's the end of my presentation, Mayor and Council. Any questions or any direction you would like to provide?
You say they get notified, or the neighborhood does, or the people get notified through their billing?
That's what we're told by Dominion, yes, sir.
Okay, I would like to see Dominion, and we can talk to them, and I don't mind going and speaking to them, but if they would go to the neighborhood associations and present this right tree, you know, what they're doing with the tree trimming, and also how to plant the right trees and keep them away from the power lines and all that, because it is kind of shocking. I mean, I can remember back in the day when SCE&G was doing it. It wasn't quite as, I guess, extensive, if you will, as what Dominion's doing. And I've driven down, and these people, a lot, like you said, are caught off guard by some of this. And I don't want us to be in the middle. There is very little we can do because they own the right of way, or they have the right of way. And we can't control that, but at least we can work with them to get better information out and notification of what's going to happen and how, you know, what they're going to do. So people at least are prepared for it. But I don't want us to be just the only one getting the word out. They need to they need to step up and do better than just send it on the bill, because most people don't, they pay the bill, they don't read it.
Right.
So I don't know, does anybody have any comments?
It's not exactly about the trees, but something else that was brought up by one of the residents earlier. I've talked to you about it before. The secondary poles next to the big ones. We need to get Dominion to compel the other utilities to put them on there. I know it's a matter of, you know, it's not us, it's the, the cable companies and everything. We need to get them to be compelling them so we get those poles out of there, because they really are unsightly.
We had that conversation with Dominion again just last week to let them
thank
know
you.
that we don't know whose utilities are on those poles. Dominion does, because Dominion once owned the poles. And so we let them know that if they provide us with the names of the companies and the pole locations where they refuse to move their utility lines over to the new Dominion poles, then we will contact the company so that we can enforce our ordinance. But we don't have access to the information and the insight to know whose utilities are still on that wooden pole beside that big metal pole. So we need their help.
Snip a line and see who starts complaining. I'm just joking. Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Yes. So first, Scott, thank you for the presentation. I know that's a very uncomfortable thing to present given the circumstances. And I'm not exactly sure what latitude we have based on the terms and agreement that, we saw. I'm under the impression that we don't have much authority to dictate what they do or not do, or how much they prune. We met with their arborist to try to at least ensure that they have an arborist on site for both the distribution, and the transmission lines. We obviously can't stand in front of the trucks, and so, I would respectfully challenge anybody that feels like we have some more authority than we're exercising to provide valid documentation of what that authority is, so that we can vet it and see if that gives us some more control over this situation. I will say, though, one thing that maybe we could do, and this is in regards to Councilman Lipsett's remark about the secondary polls, and then the conversation that we had with Dominion this last week. But it seems like the disconnect is Dominion's letting the cable companies know they should move their lines, and the cable companies are not. And the city has an ordinance in place that they need to do so within 30 days. And so I'm wondering if there's the opportunity for us to update our ordinance to require that Dominion include the city in that initial notification that goes out to the cable companies. This way, we're notified of when that initial response was provided to the cable companies or whoever's occupying that secondary pole. And then I think it would help, one, bridge that disconnect, but it would also immediately give us the ability to start that clock and better enforce that ordinance, at least to provide some relief in that regard. It's tough because I wasn't here on council in 2006, but listening to some of the comments that were made tonight, it seems like the most appropriate thing would have been to put the taller poles in, raise the lines above the tree line, allow the trees to grow, and take out the shorter poles. And I think that opportunity certainly was there, and to some extent was not exercised to the fullest if we're obviously coming back every 5 years to cut trees around lines. But if we could update the ordinance, maybe take a look at that to be a part of that initial notification, so that we could start the clock sooner and go ahead and get some of those old poles removed. If we could require that Dominion include us in that, that would be great. And part of what came from the discussion too was we understand that perhaps the residents are notified however they receive their bill 2 weeks prior to Dominion actually having subcontractors on site. But I think that there's also the opportunity for the city to get more complete information and to perhaps have some kind of a portal by which we help notify residents as well. And so I'm not sure where that is, but that was part of the discussion to ensure that, on a weekly basis, we get pertinent information, understanding that schedules are going to change, subcontractors' jobs in other areas are going to be, either a slower or on a faster schedule. And so trying to work within some of those inconsistencies and in the unpredictable environment that we're in to make sure that people are at least aware of what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, so that there's not that shell shock of, wow, I left home to go to work and now I come back and my tree that I have cared about and appreciated for so long is cut off. So at any rate, that would be my initial thoughts on this. And again, I thank you for taking the time to present it. And I do wish that Dominion was here to articulate some of it themselves, as they're probably much better prepared to do so.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, this is Mitch. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, yeah, it's hard for me to know. For some reason, anyway. This subject of our ability to influence Dominion's actions or lack thereof, was the big topic when the large power line posts were being put in certain neighborhoods. And I do remember that Dominion did come out and they had all the heavy hitters, in chamber talking with us. I wonder why they wouldn't come out again. And I think it would be good if we could elevate a level by having you engage with them to see if they could come, because obviously, having been on council, going into the 6th year now, I do remember that conversation, with the frustration from citizens due to the oversized, power poles being installed in their neighborhoods, and they did come and talk to us. So hopefully, it just takes a little more coaxing, a little more, gunpower, and maybe you have that, Mayor.
Yeah, I'm disappointed Dominion chose not to show up because of course, I think they hide behind the fact that they acquired South Carolina Electric and Gas and fail to recognize that they have responsibility. I was not, I get to say this, Josh. I was not on council in 2006 when they put up those poles. But I was in those chamber meetings because it's through my neighborhood.
Right.
And the information that Robin Copperness and Laura Achert shared is very true and very valid. And we should have that somewhere. In the annals of our history, we should have some of this somewhere we should be able to find. And they're going to hide behind the fact that they're not SCE&G and they didn't make the promises and they don't have to stand by them. But the reality is the low voltage occupants on those poles have known since 2006 that they needed to relocate their lines on those poles. And they've had ample time to do it. And I think it's time that we compel them to do it.
Agreed.
Amen.
Not wanting to be a coward. I just wanted to say that.
Would never accuse you of that.
Okay, we have, Mr. Trask has his hand raised. Mr. Trask? You wish to comment?
Graham Trask, 1211 Bay Street again. Well, I was going to use a Martin Luther King analogy, and so I'm glad that Mitch spoke up. Because if you think you're powerless, well, then you're powerless. You think that's what Martin Luther King did? Did he think he was powerless? Well, if you roll over and do nothing, which is exactly what you're doing, which is what cowards do, Mike, then you are letting the citizens down. You're not leading. You're abdicating your power. And you're suggesting and being convinced by Dominion that because they have the quote unquote legal right to do it, you're going to let them do it. Just like the whites asserted they had the legal right to put the blacks at the back of the bus. I assert that you do have power, but you choose not to use it. And I assert Scott Marshall has power, and he uses it every day against me, but he won't use it against Dominion. He won't use it to stand up for the citizens like Robin and Laura and all the residents of Pigeon Point and all the residents along the bluff where their trees were annihilated 5 years ago. And yes, you can stand in front of those trucks and they will not run you over, I promise. And that's what it takes, because Dominion's not going to come and face the residents because it's quote unquote corporate policy not to do that. Well, I bet you if you summoned them in, they'd either appear or you tell them you can't cut your trees. And what would they do then? Sue you. Well, you guys got to do something. You can't just sit up there and make all the excuses as to why you're not going to do anything. Come on. Why did people vote you in? I sure hope you'll do at least what Councilman Mitchell said, if not more. And no, I don't agree, Scott, that you can't do anything. You might have lost the lawsuits if that's what they were. But you can still do stuff. And I think it's shameful. I think it's absolutely shameful. And you did it sheepishly, that you come in here and read Dominion's marketing material. Give me a break. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move next to the, oh, Ms. Lamarcus.
I live in Pigeon Point, Felice Lamarca. I live in Pigeon Point as well. Pigeon Point Road is decimated. And I just spent thousands of dollars on your trees behind my house, taking care of them. So to see what happened in the name of power, who licenses Dominion? Who gave them the exclusivity for power in Beaufort?
Well, we give them a franchise, but they're the only game in town. They bought out SCE.
And you have power.
I believe it's the Public Service Commission.
Public Service Commission controls that.
So we citizens and you have nothing to do with who supplies the power to this city. I find that extraordinary.
Most public utilities are monopolies, if you haven't noticed that.
So we go to the public service, right? So there's one thing we can do. I can do, you can do, okay? We're not powerless. Graham is right about that. We just choose to not find what power we have. Dominion's going to need us for something. Mark my words. And the answer, I hope, will be no and no again. I have not gotten notified. I did not get notified that the trees were being cut. Did you? I do read. I get my Dominion Energy bill and I get my Dominion Energy. Here's how you can save power during this extreme heat. There was nothing sent to me about cutting trees in my neighborhood, and they didn't start on the 13th. Scott, they've been at it all week.
Those are distribution lines. Transmission lines started last week. Distribution lines start the 13th.
Oh, great.
Read the things. The property owners of the trees that are being cut are the ones that are notified according to Dominion.
So not the
Not the whole
neighborhood.
However, in past years, when information was disseminated through the city, which it has not been done,
Mhm.
we would notify the neighborhood association so that they could disseminate that information to their residents.
Well, can we start doing that again?
We have asked them.
Thank you. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Might as well hear from all the citizens.
Make it brief.
Yeah, it will.
Joe Mack, give us.
Joe
your
Mack,
address.
1809 Boundary Street. I speak as a citizen of Beaufort rather than a volunteer on the Parks and the Trees Advisory Commission. I'm not a tree expert. I have heard from the tree experts. The slide that was shown 10 minutes ago said something like, if you see extensive tree trimming, here's some reasons. Well, one of the reasons it said something about long-term health of the tree. I find that hard to believe. The tree experts are, and I don't know if they're trimming live branches or dead branches, probably both, but this seems like the wrong time of year to be doing some tree trimming. So never mind the butchering, because the tree experts say, maybe they're talking about dead limbs. You need to cut your dead limb, but they say, wait, because it's so dry, the tree is dehydrated. So wait till a more moderate time of the year so you don't shock the tree. That just, I don't believe it. I don't think that slide come from Scott. Like he said, he's the messenger. Maybe that came from Dominion. And then the last thing, I should have said this at the beginning, I'm sad to see Nate Farrow leave. You know, if you hire the right people, things work. If you hire the wrong people, things don't work. He was the right guy. So I'll be brief.
Thank you. Okay, next is our consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Next, we have minutes of regular meeting, June 9th, 2026. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any changes, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, special meeting minutes of June 22nd, 2026. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Okay. Any changes? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, and last work session of June 23rd, 2026.
Move accept.
Second.
Okay, a second. Any changes? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I have one comment on the minutes, no
Okay.
changes.
One.
The June 9th, I believe, but it was just in regard to a comment that I made. I saw it was captured in the minutes, and I just wasn't unfortunately able to find it before we passed through, but it was in regards to posting the itemized expenditure on the website, and I just wanted to know if we had done that already.
Are you speaking in terms of the FY27 budget?
Correct.
We have not. I spoke with Alan today about the online budget book. They are getting that together and should have it posted within the next 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay, and I guess the delineation for me is not in the way that it has been before, but just I honestly think that the itemized expenditure Excel sheet would be easier for people to understand than the summary books that we've posted in the past. But that's more of what I was hoping could be posted onto the site.
We'll have that up before the week's out then.
Thank you.
All right, next we go to old business. An ordinance to amend the City of Beaufort zoning map to rezone real property located at 1556 Salem Road, Beaufort County Tax Map R120029000 103E0000 from T4 Neighborhood, T4N to Regional Mixed Use, RMX. This is second and final reading. Do I
So
have a
moved.
motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we need a presentation. Kurt, do you want to give us a real brief update for the public?
Sure, let me find it here. Okay, this was presented last hearing, but this is the old Beaufort Gazette building. Sorry, I need to go to slideshow. There we go. And the request is a zone from T4N, which is essentially kind of a more of a multifamily district that's a transect zone. I guess that's the best way to explain it. This is what it looks like now, the old Gazette building. It is zoned currently T4N, and they want to go to RMX, which is a kind of a commercial mixed use district. I think as mentioned at the last meeting, and you can see the zoning that's around it. The property to the right that I think the applicant is in right now is in the county. But that's obviously the U-Haul kind of mixture of uses. The property to the left of it there is the dealership that's owned by the property owner themselves. And then to the north, you have the, another dealership and used car dealership and a office building. And to the kind of northeast, you have the old Walmart building. I know that's commercial use that's somewhat vacant. To the south is T4N, and that's proposed for future senior housing. And then the yellow on your sheet is T3S, which is the Live Oak subdivision. Again, I think and this is in a floodplain. It was voted 5-0 or 7-0 to rezone it by the Planning Commission. The gentleman that spoke, again, I think did have a point that, the comp plan did have this as general urban. So that is something to consider.
The challenge being though, there are a number of findings and factors for rezoning in, South Carolina. And the thought is that both the existing and the uses around it, that the RMX would be reasonable. The RMX just allows that light commercial kind of uses. And in addition to basically everything allowed in T4N. So it's the challenge being our code is a transect code. It really, there's not really any other district that allows the commercial uses that the applicant is proposing. But what's being asked for, and, we're trying to, I guess, promote its sustainable reuse. And because of the area, it has, basically, and we've also, the property owner was not aware it was zoned T4N, which is the dealership essentially. And from, prior experience and looking at all the records, we really haven't been able to find why that T4N was placed on that property in 2017, but it definitely was carried over to the comprehensive plan, which was, trying to be consistent with the zoning. So the choice is really yours. I think, we try to work with the applicant as much as possible to find a reasonable solution. And I think, we settled on just doing RMX, not T5 UC. But this is really the best solution we could find to have that reuse of the building. Because right now, except for offices, it's essentially, as you can see, it's a sturdy building. It's got 24-inch floors. So and it's it's not been used for over 10 years. And so it's, it's starting to have some vandalism and some other things being done to it. And it's kind of a staging ground as well. So, that's what's before you today. So.
I got a question. You said next door or somewhere there was senior housing reserved for, where's that? Is that right next door or?
I'm sure there's it's probably better just to look at the map. So if you go south of this property, there's that giant field
1,600?
Is senior housing, which would be allowed in the T4N district.
That's 1,600, correct?
Yeah. I don't know the address offhand, but I would assume so.
I'm looking at the map on there. You got 1556 is this property and 1,600 is next one down.
So both RMX and T4N would allow the senior housing. The T4N would actually allow.
What's the status? What's the status of, I know I've seen the project going through.
It was approved a long time. I mean, I think
that's what I thought it had been
in
approved.
2021. It was I think they actually just Monday, they submitted finally a site work permit. But
I watched it going through the board.
I don't know that
the approval, and that's why I was wondering what happened to it.
It's taken a long time. I don't know that there's any movement on actually building it, but I think they're trying to get it all permitted for, you'd have to ask the applicant on that.
And these two would kind of coexist.
Right now they coexist, obviously I think there's been some valid concerns, but I think the question is, before you, do you want to rezone this RMX to allow this type of building to be reused in this manner? Or, do you want to continue with the zoning that it is? So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council?
I have a question, Phil.
Go ahead, Councilman Mitchell.
Yeah, Kurt, could you address for me Mr. Kevin's comment? I hope I'm quoting him, paraphrasing correctly, that if it's rezoned, then it's open up for who knows what in the future. Is there any are there any restrictions if we change the rezoning to what it may become if he chooses to do something other than what he told us he's going to do with it?
Sure. So every rezoning, you're basically changing the base uses of the property. And so while that is true in some sense, the fact that we have a form-based code adds a lot of conditions to what anything can be done. So it would have to come back to the Planning Commission. And as you are aware, there's a lot of conditions, design and form-based code conditions that a traditional zoning ordinance would not have, that would have to be met. And then the hearing before the planning commission would, basically they'd have some discretionary power over everything. So the difference in this is the T4N only allows retail. I think this was discussed last meeting, so I'm not trying to waste a lot of his time. Only in a retail overlay district, which is in the downtown and a portion of Ladies Island on 21. And that's really the big difference, I think. So, that could be like drive-throughs, that could be, and, I don't want to, I think Mr. The gentleman that spoke is, correct in some sense, but the city would have some control over how that looks and gets approved in the future, should they redo, basically knock down this building and, propose something different. But the building itself would essentially be, if they don't do anything to it, essentially would be a non-conforming kind of building. But right now the use is not allowed. So if that makes some sense, this is a very complicated thing, so, sorry about that. But if he would just do the warehouse that he's proposing with some retail, if he keeps the building as is, the code would allow him to do that with the existing building itself. If they did anything else, it would have to come back to the planning commission and meet all those form-based code, whether it's RMX or T4N. So does that make sense?
I think if I remember correctly from the last meeting, the current person is not even planning to use the full square footage of the building for a while. Is that correct?
That is, he's here if you want to ask him. I think he's proposing to kind of do warehousing and then to have some, like a retail showroom, because he's doing like building supplies, windows, that kind of thing. And I think the proposal was to do that for the other, maybe split it off, and it has 2 loading docks. So to do something similar to that, right? But I would ask Mr. Martin what his plan.
If Phil would permit, maybe Mr. Martin could address that question, please.
Sorry. Mayor, Councilman Mitchell was just asking if the applicant could speak to his question.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, sir. My plan is at this time is to move over in the right-hand side of the building. The way the building's built, it's kind of set up into 3 sections that could easily be made. But we're going to go on the right-hand side, you could say approximately 1/3 of the building for our offices and showroom. The left-hand side of the building, which is the old press room, would become our storage area. We're warehousing all the windows that do come in. So it leaves us one section in the center that we would probably like to do just have that gutted out and hopefully find a tenant that would go in there. Possibly somebody in the same type of business we are. Floor coverings is one discussion we've had with somebody, would be somebody like you got specialty flooring out on Okatee, not that company, but something along those lines, something that would be in the building industry that needs a little warehouse space, a loading dock, and retail space for a showroom. So that's kind of our intention.
So thank you for that. So that would be your intention, but if you chose to do something, so let's say we were to allow the rezoning for your business to operate, and that middle portion of the building, while you hope to have a business like that you mentioned, I guess my question back to Kurt is that if you decide to do something that's not in keeping with what you suggested, or that I guess Mr. Kevin is concerned about, and I think in my mind, I'm concerned about, would there be any condition where you would be required to come back to the city before you do something beyond what you're proposing?
It would be a change of use, and that potentially would go back to the board. So if they wanted to put in, something that was dissimilar to what the building is now, which, was kind of a newsroom, office, production facility, and he's going to warehousing. The building code is basically, we've had many discussions that, the building, the way it was built, it would allow his use that would, kind of match up perfectly here with this. But if he goes to, a different building classification, it would trigger a change of use that would then trigger a hearing to the planning commission. But, that would have to be something, that's really heavy with, I think, citizen, like traffic and cars and, like a restaurant, would be a perfect example. A restaurant would trigger immediately, that section of the building going to the planning commission, but it also triggers so many building code issues that, it would probably be extremely difficult to do something other than what he's proposing and not trigger a lot of improvements to the building.
Okay.
But a restaurant would be approved in RMX.
A restaurant could be approved in RMX, so I don't want to take away from that, so. It just would trigger a meeting before the planning commission and notice, and, the notice is 1,000 feet. So, I think the struggle with this, I think from the gentleman that spoke, is that 1,000 feet, hits some of Live, doesn't really even hit a lot of Live Oak, right? It's, the residential's a far away, right? And so that is, the challenge here with just the property itself, right? So.
Thank you.
The intention really is to grow our business. That's the bottom line. And I can't, like I said, 7 employees to move in there and then have it 16,000 square feet. We're not going to fill it, but we do have plans. I've got 2 sons that are in business with me. I'm obviously not going to work forever. They have ownership in the business. I have ownership in the building. All our family is here. We put down roots in Beaufort. Our intentions aren't to, one son has already, owned Urban Market. Okay. I'm not going in the restaurant business. That'd be the worst thing that I could ever do. I would never want that headache. But we are looking at some different lines that hopefully we could go into commercial doors, commercial windows, and expand the business along those lines. That's what we're proposing to do if we get the space, but that is going to take time. It just doesn't happen overnight that you're going to fill a 16,000 square foot building overnight. Is it going to have more things going on there? Yeah, might have a couple more trucks a week coming in, might have a few clients coming in, but generally speaking, we have 1 to 2 customers that walk into our showroom a week. It's not very many because we're dealing with builders. Builders are taking care of the speccing of the houses with the products that they put into them. So it's not a heavy retail situation where we have all this foot traffic coming in, and kind of we want to keep with that for the future.
After council has a chance to discuss it.
Is there anything within our ZBOA guidelines that we could do zoning and allow for a use change that would not trigger the RMX?
Zoning, we actually, I think, Mr. Coppage and I kind of thought about this when, I think, Mr. Martin came, and we thought there might be some on-site, manufacturing, but that changed. But as far as I know, no, there's no ability to do kind of like a special exception. We were kind of trying to think if that would, which we could put conditions on this, but, yeah, I don't think we found any ability to do so since it's in the audience.
Can't do an overlay or anything like that?
Yeah, we could still do a PUD, but an overlay for one property, I don't think would.
No, if you could extend it in that area is what I'm thinking.
You're talking about like the retail overlay. I just would, caution.
Got retail all around there.
So, it just seems like I know from, and to Mr. Martin's credit, he's been at this for many months trying to, we've been trying to figure out the best solution. So, yeah, I think this is probably the easiest and cleanest. It's just, your opinion, whether it's appropriate or not, so.
Yeah, well, from my standpoint, I'd certainly like to see the building be reused, but my concern is with the changing of the zoning, because then I'll say, it tends to be kind of permanent. It'll be that way forever with RMX. Back in 2017, when it was rezoned T4N, and I was on council, and if I'm not mistaken, I think the reason for doing that and making it general urban under the comp plan was to prevent any more commercial or business creep into an area that's residential. Because south of that building is residential. I think that's why it was done, and it was done for that reason. I don't think it was an error. I think it was done purposely.
Yeah, I can't say I can find any information. You know, our former director's on the planning commission and, asked her, what was happening with that, but she wasn't quite sure. But generally, the zoning is supposed to, when you do a new zoning ordinance, you should be consistent with the existing uses that are there or the buildings, right? And in this case, this building is kind of a unique building, right? It's kind of a light industrial building, for lack of a better word. It was done residentially, so it's obviously sat there. So, I think that's the challenge.
Concern is after Mr. Martin, if he decides to move on and get a bigger building or something, then you're stuck with that RMX and something else could go in there. And then you got adjacent property owners to the south that may say, I want to upzone mine to RMX. And so you're going to have that creep moving down Salem Road. That's the concern I have. Because then that's mainly a residential area. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to keep the commercial on the roads, on the main thoroughfares, and not down these little 2-lane roads.
Mayor, if the senior center comes in, that kind of stops the creep. They're right next door to it.
Well, yeah, yes and no, and I'll just use this to kind of tie in because I had some comments that I wanted to make on this too. As a recap, I did vote no on this the first time, and some of the reasons were exactly what's been expressed tonight. But there are parcels, obviously, to the west of this that are currently zoned T4N that could also be interested in RMX, and it would probably be appropriate at that time for them to really consider that if this one were upzoned. I will say, so I met with the applicant and his son, and I just want to thank them again for taking the time to do that because it was helpful for me to better understand what their intention is. And I fully believe that their interest in this property and their intent is to reutilize and repurpose a property that has been vacant for a long time. And I think that to some extent we should encourage that because we do have a lot of vacated buildings and there are opportunities for us to improve those. And I think that what they're doing is expanding a family business and providing a service to the city by better utilizing that property. My concern, though, is that the RMX zoning is much broader than what we're trying to solve with this specific issue. The request, in some ways, is being presented as a way to allow for retail and office, and I know that, back to our previous conversation, office is allowed, it's the retail that is blocked in the T4 zoning. But RMX is not just simply T4N with retail. RMX is a regional mixed-use district, and once that's approved, that approval runs with the land, and future owners would not be limited to the applicant's current proposal. That's just a matter of fact, and it's not anything against the applicant or their proposal. It's just a statement of fact. And part of what our table shows, some of this I disagree with being appropriate, but part of what RMX would allow is a lot higher impact categories: vehicle, boat sales, drive-through facilities, gas stations, vehicle service and repair shops, light industrial services, manufacturing. But it would also allow, for some reason, our RMX allows for a density of 30 residential units per acre. And I think that's some of the fear that we're getting from residents that live there, is that you would potentially be subjected to a higher density of even residential development or a higher impact commercial development if something in this proposal with this buyer does not work out in the future. And I think that's a very valid concern, especially given the fact that this is a residential road that has already severely been impacted, not just by the developments that we see today, but by the PUDs that have been approved and very strong potential that they will be coming to fruition and coming out of the ground in the next couple of years. And I think we need to be cognitive of that. I think we need to go into this with our eyes wide open and understand that if this upzoning is what we see and what we approve, then there needs to be some very diligent intention on looking at that area as a whole as we go through this update with the comprehensive plan to identify if not only our zoning classifications are appropriate, but what is in the best interest of the residents in that area and the city at large, and perhaps recalibrating some of our zoning classifications and what they allow would be appropriate here. And obviously that would run with the land if that were to be the case. So my concerns are still as they were in the first time that we reviewed this. And again, it's very consistent with some of the comments that we're hearing tonight.
Comments, council? Oh, Ms. Kevin asked first, so.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to me again. And Kurt, thank you for your comments. And I don't disagree with your comments, but probably the comment I agree most wholeheartedly with is the fact that this is your discretionary call. And I think that if you go through the criteria that is set forth in your code that is provided by Kurt, page 133 of your agenda packet, section 9.16.3C identifies the things that you should consider. And as I went through earlier, there are a lot of no's as opposed to a lot of yeses. The first no, the no that Kurt identifies as the first one about consistency with the comp plan. And then he says yes to the others, but I respectfully submit that the answer to most, if not all of those, is no. And what I've heard from the applicant, and I'm not unsympathetic to the applicant's situation, but I guess my response would be yes to what you want to do, but just not in this location for several reasons. What I really heard Kurt say and what I heard the applicant say is that there's a hardship, and that is the hardship is that the building has, they want to bring new life to the building, but the building has issues and there's a hardship case. But the problem with that is this isn't a variance request. This is a rezoning. I mean, hardship is not one of the factors that you consider. So I would say this isn't a building that is being rezoned. This is a property that is being rezoned, and the rezoning is going to run with the property. So the building can come and go, and the owner can come and go, and the businessman can come and go, but the zoning for the property remains, and it stays with the property as it goes through. And Mr. Martin's plans that he talks to you about, those are relevant to a variance, but they're not relevant to a rezoning. I mean, this is a rezoning. So Kurt stressed that there's a big problem with this building, and that is fitting it into something that can be used. There are lots of uses for a building like this other than RMX. It's just a matter of being creative. I would say to Councilman Lipsitz, whose concern in response to the mayor's concern about creep, business creep, isn't that somebody who has applied to have a multi-use family use for the next property down. That's just a request. There's no building there. There's no construction going on there. There is no senior living there. Who knows if that will ever materialize. Plans for development of houses and apartments come and go every day, as you know. And who knows what one day the property owner of that property will come by and will come to you and ask you to rezone. He might say, I want to be rezoned to RMX because the property to the east of me, you just rezoned to RMX. The property across the street from me is some kind of probably grandfathered commercial use because it was a Butler dealership, and it sat vacant for years and years, and now it's cobbled into a couple of different businesses. So that argues for business use or commercial use for my large lot. And the lot behind me, the one to the west, it too is commercial. So suddenly you've got a guy with a big piece of property that you think is going to be used for family use, multifamily use, but may never be used for that. So I'm not unsympathetic. I understand what's going on, and I understand exactly what the planning department is trying to do. And I applaud it, but I just don't think this is the right place for it to be done. Number one. Number two, and I'll be very brief on this. I drive past this property. My property is further on down Salem Road. I don't know how far I am from that the southernmost property line, but let me tell you, like I told you earlier, I travel up Salem Road to go right, travel up Salem Road and turn left onto B.E. Wheatley. It's labeled something different on this map, but if you go to B.E. Wheatley, you'll see it's posted as B.E. Wheatley. And so I drive that corner and that area at least once a day, every day. I never remember seeing any notice on that property about a rezoning. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't there. I'm just saying that I never saw it. I never noticed it. So if the purpose is to give notice, notice was not received. Wasn't received by me, and I'm confident that it wasn't received by the HOA for the folks at Live Oak, because I've seen the email from them to you about the fact that they didn't see it either. So I think you want to look at your notice provisions in your code, maybe to enhance that and to beef it up. But I would respectfully say, I'm all for reusing buildings. I'm all for business, but this isn't the right place. Thank you.
Real quick, in the spirit of trying to find a way to yes, because I think maybe I'm a little bit, oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a comment on that? I'm sorry. I'll wait till after you. Yes.
I'm not going to remember this probably accurately, but in the many county meetings that I attend, piece of property in front of my neighborhood in Okatee, the Cherry Point neighborhood, 71 acres. We did successfully defeat two developments that were trying to build homes and multi-use businesses as well. Luckily, the Beaufort County School District has purchased the 71 acres, and it's directly across the Cherry Point Road from Okatee Elementary School. They discovered that the T2R designation, T2 rule, which Okatee Elementary School sits on T2R, doesn't allow schools. So in a couple of their school properties, they are non-compliant. So planning department came up with a special use in T2R. So they did not request a zoning change. They requested a special use for schools. And I asked, if the school decides not to build and sells the property, does the special use transfer? And it does not. So I understand why we can't do that here. And I don't know, I don't think the county ordinances are better than yours. So
Depends on who you ask.
so it depends on how it's written. I don't know, but I just threw that out as a solution.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, that
You wanna
was
address
sort of the
that?
origin of what my question was,
Right,
whether or not there
exactly.
was another use.
I mean,
Mr. Coppedge is here, but I think you would probably need to do a text amendment, to allow, some special exception or something like that in the code for this specific use in T4N, because it, right now it doesn't exist. Right.
Do we have, so let me ask this, Kurt, in our permitting chart, which I don't have in front of me, which you don't have in front of you, but in the retail section, I think for T4N, it's conditional. with
Conditional to the retail.
3.6.2D or whatever the condition is there. But on the permitting chart, we also have AE designation for basically the purpose of existing buildings that are in place. And I don't know what a text amendment would look like entirely, but is there a way that to include in that permitting chart that retail uses for existing buildings be something that is allowed even in the T4N, and we really wouldn't have to recreate anything. I know that may be a little bit of a delay because we'd have to go to the planning commission. They would need to make that recommendation to council. It sounds like they're already in favor of what the applicant is proposing, and I feel like by and large, at least council is, the concern is what the rezoning would allow that would run with the land should something else happen. And so I'm trying to find a way also to get to yes for what the applicant's proposing, but also protect the city in the long run from the property being used in a far more impactful way in a already tight, congested area. So is there a way we could just make
I think we could probably do something for existing buildings. I'm looking back at, but it would need to be a text amendment. That's how I interpret it. And like I said, when Mr. Martin came like a year ago, that was it 6 months ago? 6 months ago, maybe. But that was kind of my original goal, was to do something like that. And we kind of bounced around as many ideas as we could legally to kind of figure that out. I had the same concern, and we just, couldn't find anything that, we felt was legal. So I think it would just take a text amendment, maybe for an existing building. I think that's, what we need to do. It's just going to take some time, right? It's go to the planning commission, has to go to 2 readings to the, the council. And, I know he's probably under contract. So, that's like a 6-month process, right? So.
Oh, and you think, could it be, because I would think that there would be, if we really wanted to, which I would imagine there'd be an appetite to, for us to expedite that a little bit, whether it be special meetings or whatever, but to where it's not a pain for the applicant to go through another 6 months of process.
I mean, I could key it up to the next planning commission work session next week if.
Do they need a work session on it?
If I can come up with the right language to do that, it's just, the question, yeah, I mean.
You can.
I think we could do that. It's just whether the planning commission will feel too rushed with that. I don't know. It's up to them. But I think that makes some sense, and maybe for every district, most of the transect districts, it could make some sense to kind of get over there's not too many other buildings like this in the city. So, but should there be, that would be the route.
Wasn't there kind of a similar situation with the, was it 1406 King, the old jail, where it was proposed maybe that particular parcel get become part of the overlay and not necessarily an entire area?
Well, the King Street is zoned, I think T4N too.
Yeah.
But they were doing residential apartments, so the use was fine.
Okay.
So. But yeah, that's an idea. If you want to expedite it, I think I would just ask, you might want to ask the applicant if, we could maybe do it in 3 months because, it's planning commission and city council and city council. I think between Ben and I, we could have something, but if that's the will of the council, it's just whether that works for his potential purchase of this building. I'm not sure, right? You might want to ask him.
I think 3 months is doable.
It's not a huge undertaking. It's just, yeah, whether everyone agrees and we come up with the right language, right? It might take 4 months, but it's possible, yeah. But I'd still ask him if that still works for him. So.
Mr. Martin, is 3 months too much? Am I pushing it?
And that, what you're proposing, what the language is going to read and what you're going to try and
We have to
accomplish
make
by
that
that.
all up. We have to make that all up, but I think what he is trying to get at is a special exception for existing buildings or some kind of like an
Here's my
appeal.
Here's my
for
problem
an
with it
existing building.
is it goes with a commercial price because that's what it was marketed as to us. That's not going to change. So having special exemptions puts more restrictions, and I'm not, what I've told you I'm doing, okay? You can bank on my word. I don't have time for games. The way I look at it is I'm paying this price, you're bringing it down to value, but I won't get a price that's lower. So at that point, my hands probably say, you guys, I'm done. I'm not going to wait another 3-4 months and trying to come up with some language that is, if I'm hearing you correctly, somehow makes it okay for you all. I grew up and left Orlando, Florida because of development. Came to Beaufort because it was smaller. Last thing I want is another mess here. Okay, and I've been discouraged to see what's going on through the city, through 170, with the same thing that happened in Orlando. High density, 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 density. That's all we've done is done density, and you've packed everybody in closer, tighter. I'm not asking, that's not what's going to happen with this structure. It's ironic that the parcel just to the south is the old CEO of Vaden themselves that they gave a parting gift to, and he's rezoned it for senior housing. It just is, it's just crazy. And now it's up for sale for $3.8 million. And I'm going, what? So we're going to get more density. We got more homes residential going in with no room whatsoever. But this property somehow is the bad guy because it's a commercial building. And I think you're looking at this thing wrong, but that's just my opinion. The city needs businesses and not just a bunch of residences sitting all over. Otherwise, you end up getting a city like Bluffton that has no downtown, has no core, has no character. All it is sprawl. It's what Orlando turned to do. Nothing but sprawl. And it keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. That's the last thing I want to be involved with. So, humbly speaking, I think if this is the direction you want to go, it'll probably be the end of the road for me, and I'll just back out of the contract and just say, fellas, it's not for me. The zoning wouldn't change, and we'll just look for another location elsewhere.
I think with the special exception, what we're looking for, the language would allow for commercial, what you want to do in that building, and it would stay without upgrading or upzoning this property to RMX, which has, if you were ever to sell, would make it, you know, we would be doing what we don't want to do, and that's having more commercial creep, if you will, down the road, because they can do, RMX, you can do anything. Like Josh had already read out all the different uses you could have. But this would allow you to keep it commercial, and you would, if you sold it, it would be commercial. Special exception, I guess, it would go with the property, wouldn't it? It would allow it.
We go with the property, we'd have to think about the. I think there's two. We could do a special exception, or we could maybe do something where an existing building would be allowed for. Go either way.
I think it's unfortunate.
I'd have to look at the language.
Writing in the,
to really to see what it says.
But either way, it would restrict him one way or the other. It would either restrict him to the special exception, you have to go to another hearing and get approved, or would it restrict him to the existing building, would, you know, basically be tied up the way you've got it for commercial use. Anything different, you'd have to rezone again. That's
Yeah,
how
and
it's
that's not what I wanted.
And I guess it probably wouldn't take, if 3 months is the whole process before it comes to, through the planning commission to council, obviously it wouldn't take that long to see what that language is going to shape into. So maybe hanging on for, a month or so to see what that kind of evolves into would be worthwhile. But I think it's unfortunate that, because here we are in a position where we have a property that is obviously, according to your statement, if I understood it right, listed and for sale at commercial rate when it's zoned residential. And that's not obviously not your fault, but it's not ours, and it would be the landowner's issue, because why would they deem their property to be worth what it would be if it was commercially zoned when it's in fact not? And in the comprehensive plan, obviously, this is designated as a general urban, which doesn't include RMX. And so I think that it was a fault of the
I think the answer was they weren't aware until he put it under contract and came.
They weren't
to
aware of the
office to
zoning?
get it permitted. They weren't aware until he tried to get this permitted, and we said, well, that's a problem.
Verify
So-
they've owned it before the zoning was changed.
Yeah.
So you all came in and changed the zoning, where it was
2017.
light industrial before. So, from their aspects, understand it. Did you notify them? Did you tell them it was changed? These things deal with, I don't know how that communication transpired, but
Right.
that was what they had before, unaware of it. And then it's whether it's that empty, and that's the reason they lost the zoning. That's the question marks that are all, because we're dealing with history.
Is it worthwhile to table this until you can get some language and how quickly?
I think it's really at your prerogative. I mean, you had a vote on it last meeting, and yeah, I'll do whatever you would like us to do.
And my contract expires in August, so, it's, I can't sit there and guarantee that they're gonna extend it. Don't know,
When in August?
31st.
And obviously, this would change substantially enough to where this has to kickstart back to first reading for us too, right?
Well, you'd be changing the code to allow this either as a special exception or per the district with specific requirements.
That code change would take two.
Take two readings.
And a public hearing.
Yeah.
I think your next meeting is the 18th, so that would be, and then the planning commission would also have to vote on it, and we'd have to advertise it, which I think we're too late to do. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to take 3 months.
Just to be clear, the notice was there.
Yeah, we have a
It
picture
was
of it.
Clearly posted at across the street. I look at it every day when I go to work. So y'all did your job, and whether people see it or not, that's on them.
Pleasure, council. Go ahead and vote on it, or do we?
Fail if you vote.
Huh?
It's gonna fail if you vote on it.
No.
Table it.
Right, I need somebody to make a motion to table. You wanna vote?
So, that's what I was wondering, maybe if we can hold off the vote till August, and that way we see how the planning commission is going, and if it's what you think is going to do it, and you could talk to the people if they'll extend it. And if not,
is
we
it a
could take
tabling
action.
or is it a postponing of the vote?
The table.
Councilman, it would be a postponing of the vote, but
Postpone.
right now you have a motion and a second on the floor for approval of the item, so you would have to introduce an intervening motion to postpone to a certain date or to a date uncertain.
Could I make a motion to withdraw my motion to this, and then we make the motion? Would that be proper?
Just make a motion to
Make a
postpone.
motion to.
Okay, make a motion to postpone until the next meeting,
August 18th meeting.
August 18th.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? I mean, no, I don't think you have discussion on postponement. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, and now we have to vote, Scott, do we have to, now that we postponed it
Yeah,
to
we
the next
got it.
meeting?
No further action should be required since you postponed it. However, do you have any particular direction you would like to provide to staff in the interim?
I think, do you kind of get what we're going with this?
We'll come up with some language between city attorney and I.
Mr. Martin, can you let us know whether or not at the next meeting also, whether or not they're willing to extend the option?
Okay. I'll send the language to Mr. Martin, just
Okay.
to, if that's okay with you. I think in this specific situation, I think he should at least be aware, right?
Next on the agenda is an ordinance to amend the City of Beaufort zoning district map to rezone real property identified as 909 Church Street, Beaufort County Tax Map Number R1200000000275 from T4 Neighborhood to T4 Historic Neighborhood District. This is second and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Bert?
I don't think this has any controversy on it. It is correcting I think, another error. I would claim as an error, that this was an old general store that 7 years ago was subdivided, and the subdivision, basically had had a different zoning district on it, and then it was consolidated, and so now it has two separate zoning districts on the same property, which is basically just a small residential lot that you can see here. It's actually on the lower hand view. So, I think the applicant is actually really the city, wanted to resolve this for her. She just wants to build a house in the future. And right now it's zoned T4HN and T4N in the middle of the property. And so we're just correcting this to T4HN, which is the slightly more restrictive zoning, which, is basically the historic kind of district zoning that's really only allows single-family houses and churches, and that's pretty much it. Whereas the T4N was based on the property you see before you that used to be a general store. So that little corner was zoned T4N. With the thought that I think it was going to pick up a retail overlay or something like that. I can't explain that one either, but that was the idea, I think, behind that, because it's the only, it was the only thing zoned T4N in the entire area. So all the red was T4HN. So this is really correcting that mistake and, going to the more restrictive zoning. And the applicant would still be allowed to build the house that she desires.
Any discussion? Council? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Next, we move to new business, a request from Just Listen organization for co-sponsorship of Southside Park to host their second annual Back to School Bash on Sunday, August 2nd, 2026, from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Jennifer?
Hello, how are you?
Good.
So yes, Just Listen organization, a nonprofit here in Beaufort, would like to host theirs second annual Back to School Bash, handing out backpacks and school supplies on August 2nd at Southside Park, and wish to waive the fees for that to help students prepare for the upcoming school year.
So second annual, the first one was held at Southside or?
No, it was held 2 years ago at Washington Street. So
Okay.
moved it over to the south side, a little bit larger area.
Any other comments?
And they are a 5013C, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
We'll call the question. All in favor,
Yeah.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, next we have authorization to allow the city manager to enter into a contractual agreement for waste management services.
Motion to approve?
Second. Okay, motion and a second. Alan, you want to brief the public on this?
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor and Council. On April 2nd, the city solicited RFP 2026-111 for waste management services. 3 bid proposals were received by the deadline of April 30th. They were from Capital Waste Services, Coastal Waste and Recycling, and Waste Pro of South Carolina. You'll see in your agenda packet the bid breakdown by the direct billing method for all three, both residential and commercial as well. Capital Waste and Coastal Waste and Recycling scored the highest based on the evaluation criteria. On June 17th, interviews were conducted. Capital Waste Services has provided these services for the past 5 years and has acted as a partner to the city, providing residential and commercial services, including services during city festival events and customer services for missed collections and communication of alternate pickup days for holidays. The current collection method, billing for residential services, $270 a year, or $22.50 per month, charged on the Beaufort County residential property taxes. Under the new current, Capital Waste will bill on a quarterly basis beginning in January 1st, 2027, directly to the resident. The city plans on selecting option 1, which includes a 5% franchise fees. The city will pay the contractor directly $20.78 per unit for residential collection fee from July 1st, 2026 to December 31st, 2026, based on the current collection method to coincide with the 2026 property tax bill, and allow Capital Waste a 6-month period to reach out to the residents regarding the change in billing process. The city paid $23.12 per unit to the contractor in fiscal year 26. Effective January 1st, 2027, the city will exercise the direct billing method at $21.99 per unit from residential collections from January 1st to June 30th, 2027. And then the next 4 fiscal years will follow the direct billing method with adjustments according to the CPI for urban consumer, which is a garbage and trash collection. The contractor will bill the resident directly on a quarterly basis beginning in January. And Capital Waste proposal also includes a replacement of existing commercial trash compactors. The selection committee was unanimous in recommending Capital Waste Services as the lowest and most responsive bidder for waste management services, and it's for a 5-year contract. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from council? Only one I had is just to make sure that notice gets out about that direct billing, because most
Yeah,
people.
that's right. Yeah, we actually were talking
I don't
about
want
that.
to surprise anybody.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll make sure to get the word out within the 6 months, but we plan on doing that soon.
Anyone else?
And I guess it's not necessarily a concern because, which I don't think we can really predict it too much, but it looks like it'll be based on, any increases will be based on the consumer price index, right? It's for the last 4 years of the contract. And so that may or may not be what we would like to see for residents, and it could increase the cost, but it doesn't look like it can increase it too dramatically. But I guess the question that I have is, it looks like in this contract, there was the 2 options, the 10% franchise fee and the 5%. The city opted for the 5% franchise fee. Is that something that we currently have in place now?
Yeah, we currently have a 5% franchise fee with Capital Waste.
Okay, so any idea off top what that would be? I mean, if we have, I guess, rough shot, if it was $23 for a resident, and you had 5,300 residents, you would probably see 1.4 million in collections, and then 5% of that, is that how that number is generated? And
Pretty
then
much.
same for the commercial side?
Yeah, kind of. It's just for the residential side, it's just the franchise fee.
It's not for the commercial?
Yes, my understanding, it's just for residential.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
It looked like in the options that it spelled out that basically there were 4 options, and it was for residential and commercial, 5%, 10%, both with the direct billing and or the
On the county.
county, county tax bill, yeah.
Double check that.
Oh, I don't.
Currently,
think so.
commercial is
it?
direct bill.
Direct bill, yeah,
Okay.
commercial is, it's just. be for-
But anyway, I guess that's the crux of the question. That's how that 5% is generated, based on the collection for, in this case, residential, whatever that total amount is, the city would get 5% as a franchise fees, which they currently are.
Yeah,
Okay.
which averages about over the fiscal year is about $120,000, $150,000 or so, I think what we've have received in the past.
Okay.
And the reason we set the 5% franchise fee was those lower rates for our residents. We didn't want to have additional costs for them. So that's why we decided to do the 5% franchise fee amount.
Versus the 10%.
Versus 10%, yeah. So
Right.
so it's
That's
less
paid-
for our residents, a little less for the city, but we rather do it that way than
That's paid to us quarterly, right?
they pay actually a monthly basis is franchise fees.
So are they gonna be responsible for replacing damaged receptacles? I mean, I know right now, the ones that they put out, a lot of them are starting to wear out. I know mine've got big holes in them and
Right.
so
Yeah,
they will be responsible
Yeah,
for,
I'm sure if we reach out to them, they can send a replacement
okay.
receptacle for that.
Any other questions?
And there was no, I didn't see any cap on the CPI increases, right? I mean, if that goes
Right.
up 10% one year, then that's
Yeah.
gonna be offset to the consumer and not,
Yeah, in years past, and it's just for CPI, just for the garbage and trash collection. So it's a little different than the overall CPI. And so I think those have kind of trended not quite as dramatic as what we've seen in the last
Average
few years or so. It's
3.3.
average. Yeah, I think in the proposal, they average they put a 3.3%.
Yeah.
For that, it could be a little higher, a little lower, but I don't think we'll see any big swings of like 10 or 15% or anything. I think most would probably fall between maybe 3% to maybe at the most, maybe 5 or 7%. But it's something that we don't really know until right before that renewal time.
We'll call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Let's have it.
Thank you.
Okay, next we go to reports, the city manager's report.
Good evening. I admire Amanda Patel's energy and her passion for the truth. I truly, truly do. But that does not give her license to propagate her own version of the truth. She's trying to connect dots that don't exist to create details that aren't true. I was copied on the email that went to Councilman Scaletti that had the link to the FOIA file in question. I did not access the link, and I have never been in possession of the file. Council knows this, and I've also communicated this to Ms. Patel. But that truth doesn't fit her narrative, so she chose to leave out that part of the story. If she has proof I've ever had possession of the file, I would like her to bring it forward. Meanwhile, I do have proof of the contrary, that the link to the file was never accessed by me. Conversely, given her comments, she seems to be intimately familiar with the contents of the files. I'm not part of the investigation, but if I was, I would be very interested in how that happened, since she is not an intended recipient of the records that were released. With that being said, I want to jump back to recognize Nate for just a moment. You do not. This is my time. Ms. Patel. You had yours. So I would like to also say a few things about Nate. You've probably heard the expression before of someone being a man's man. And yes, that's kind of a sexist term. But I say that only to say that Nate is a leader's leader. And what is a leader's leader? A leader's leader is not one who simply leads others in the accomplishment of a mission or a task or some objective that you set forward. But a leader's leader is someone who develops other leaders so that they can do those same things. I've seen that in Nate time and time again the last 3.5 years that I've been here. Nate cracked me up when he said thank you to myself and to Eric that we always answer when he calls. I see that as the opposite. Nate always answers when we call at the worst times of day and night sometimes. And it's always a very gracious, yes, sir, I'll get right on it. It'll be taken care of. And you know what? It is. It's always taken care of right away. We've always been able to count on him, and we will miss Nate a great deal. I want to take a few minutes to highlight some of the positive things happening throughout our organization and our community over the past several weeks. First, I want to recognize our employees and community partners for what's been an outstanding series of Independence Day events. From putting down the Roots of Liberty ceremony commemorating America's 250th birthday, to First Friday's Red, White, and Beaufort, and especially the inaugural Community Freedom Fest at Waterfront Park, our staff demonstrated once again what can be accomplished through teamwork and community partnerships. The downtown operations team, public works, police, fire, and many volunteers helped create memorable experiences for hundreds of families. Based on the response from the public, I believe we've established a new annual tradition. I also want to once again recognize Nate Farrow. He'll soon be leaving the city for an outstanding professional opportunity. He's transformed our Public Works Department and established a standard of service that has benefited every resident of Beaufort. While we are certainly disappointed to lose him, we are grateful for his leadership and wish him and his family nothing but success in this next chapter. We are a better staff and a better service provider because of Nate. On the capital projects front, we're continuing to make steady progress with the King Street Charles Craven drainage projects. We anticipate Duke Street to be under construction this summer, sometime sooner rather than later. The first South Carolina Volunteers of African Descent Park is in the design phase, and the Waterfront Park day dock gangways are expected to restore pedestrian access before the Water Festival. We realize that some of these projects can be disruptive, but they represent long-term investments and will serve our community for decades. Speaking of the waterfront, I also appreciate the continued work of the Waterfront Advisory Committee. The committee is now helping shape the next phase of the Relieving Platform project, having reviewed the phases and tasks associated with the RFQ that will begin the engineering design process. We anticipate the RFQ will be published no later than the 1st of next week. This should put us on a vector to bring a recommendation for contract award to council in September. I also want to acknowledge the Beaufort Police Department and the Beaufort Fire Department for another successful year of the Future Guardians and Sparking Embers youth programs. These initiatives are about much more than introducing young people to careers in public safety. They're about building trust, leadership, and lasting relationships with the next generation of our community. And finally, I want to remind everyone that tonight is our last regularly scheduled city council meeting before our summer recess. Unless a special meeting becomes necessary, council will reconvene on Tuesday, August 18th. While council will enjoy a brief break from formal meetings, city staff will continue advancing capital projects, preparing for upcoming policy discussions, and delivering the services our residents expect each and every day. We look forward to returning in August with continued progress to report. Are there any questions from council?
Any questions for city manager? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Scott. For the mayor's report, I want to echo the same comments you made about Nate. Scott, he's going to be sorely missed, but he was a leader's leader. I appreciate that. I've attended the usual meetings. I participated in a photo shoot interview for this show called Now We Know. That should be on MSNBC. Is that the?
It will air this Saturday morning at what time, Danielle?
Oh.
11 a.m. Saturday morning on CNBC.
Oh, CNBC, okay. Okay. Also participated in the Liberty Tree planting, putting down the roots of liberty with the reenactor from Ben Franklin. We gave him a key to the city. We also gave him a kite so that he could continue his scientific experiments with electricity. Also participated in July 4th in the Children's Parade and the activities in the park. I also attended First Friday, and in the heat and all that, we had a good crowd out there. Linda, Sarah, thank y'all for all that and the activities in the park. Also, I'll be attending the MASC annual meeting in Greenville next week, as will several other council members. And just want to remind everybody about Water Festival. The opening night is July 17th, Friday. So with that, I'm going to, Councilman Mitchell.
Yes, sir. Thanks, everyone. I'm attending from afar today, but glad to be here. I too was present at the Liberty Tree planting at the park, sponsored by HBF, and got a chance to meet the Ben Franklin and get a picture with him. That was pretty special. Also, want to thank our police department for supporting our third annual Unity in the Community Park and co-sponsorship with Parks and Recs, County Parks and Recs. That was a success despite the heat. It was just energized to see the young children out there having fun and not seeming to mind the heat very much as we older folks were. And I'll be also going to Greenville with the mayor and other council members to the MASC conference in Greenville. So, and again, thanks to everyone for all they shared during this meeting and for supporting my absence.
Thank you. Councilman McPhee?
I also attended a number of different events through the last month, and I won't belabor all of those. I wanted to remind everybody that the long-range planning for local area transportation study, that survey ends tomorrow before the end of business. So if you have not done your survey yet for the long-range planning for local transportation, please take the opportunity to do that. It'll take you probably about 20 minutes, and you have to jump around a little bit, but it's not that difficult. That's all I got.
Okay. Councilman Scaletti?
Yes. So unfortunately, my name has been thrown around a lot tonight in some ways that I don't think is best, but one point that I would like to clarify just in regards to some of the things that was said is in regards to not knowing, maybe I just heard this wrong, not knowing that Scott and JJ received the FOIA file, because I did know that. I was on the same thread that they were on when that file was sent. What I did not know, and what was a surprise to me, was the revelation of our city attorney's letter to the Department of Crime Victim Services in September, stating that I was the only other recipient of that file. That was the issue that I had, because I do not feel like that was an honest representation. But nonetheless, moving past that, now that that point is clarified, I was excited to be able to speak to the future guardians this year. As Scott pointed out, this is not just a time for us to show the kids the importance of the roles that both the police department and the fire department provide in way of public service, but it's also a way to start developing future leaders and to really highlight the fact that leadership is not the title that you wear, it's not the position that you hold, but it's doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do when nobody else is paying attention. And I feel like it gives the perfect opportunity for our police department, our officers in that particular program to provide that insight to young kids who are going to be the next generation. You know, when I looked across that room, I didn't see, I don't see the next group of leadership here on council today, right? I mean, those are the students that are in the schools. Those are the kids that participate in these initiatives that we put on. And I was also able to attend the Sparking Embers, the graduation there. And Chief Ross brought up the fact that he heard some sniffles in the room. And I know that I own some of those as he played the Charleston 9 video and pulled on the heartstrings of how not just important the job is, but how dangerous it can be and how impactful that is on the families who are left behind. Very thankful to be able to attend a number of events. The July 3rd, our first Friday event, I think it was Red, White, in Beaufort. Kids had a blast there, and I'm thankful for downtown operations organizing and putting together our first Friday events. July 4th, there was a lot of activities for the kids to do. I was blessed to be able to be one of the judges in the kids parade. Unfortunately, my kids were not able to participate in that aside from walking with me. But I just think that those little things that we do to provide families the opportunity to participate in what we're doing is always a good thing. So I was thankful to be able to be there and help orchestrate some of that. And I'm thankful for Bonnie. Bonnie's a business owner downtown, and she was fundamental in introducing that idea. And I know it's not originally what she had wanted, but it was enough, I feel, to provide something for families, and very thankful for her diligence in trying to always look for those opportunities and to bring those to our attention. And then I'll just pile on to Scott's statement in regards to the Waterfront Advisory Committee. We have made significant progress, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks here, the RFQ can go out and we can secure a team to work on the design and the permitting phase of that. And hopefully we can be responsible enough in our stewardship to ensure that we have the finances to keep that project moving forward at every turn. So again, thank everybody for being here tonight. The decisions that we make are not always easy, and I appreciate everybody that's willing to show up, speak their mind, and sit through these sometimes long meetings with us.
Last but not least, Councilman Lipsitz.
Thank you. I went to countless events that have been mentioned. I'm not gonna go into all of them, but I will talk about one of them that I did go to.
I was gonna, but I thought you would. so-
No, I'm not talking about that one.
Okay.
That one we didn't go to. We were denied access to that one.
Oh.
Anyway,
I've been
the one
thrown
I
out
did.
worse, I've been thrown out of better places.
Yes, yes. Well, you weren't thrown out. You were just never let in. Neither was I. Anyway, enough on that one. I went to Ben Franklin, an evening with Ben Franklin. I was invited by HBF to be there. And they had a question and answer session, and they made a mistake on calling on me. Big mistake. Larry Rowland was interviewing Ben Franklin. And one of the questions I asked Dr. Franklin was, as a youth, what influence did Larry Rowland have on you? It left him and didn't know what to say. I mean, he really regretted calling me on that. Anyway, a shout out to the city and the county for a great open house at the Charles Lynn Brown Center recently. It was fantastic. Congratulations at USCB to Mercer Brugler, professor there, head of one of the departments. He had a black coral, a species of black coral named for him. I mean, how cool is that? And then I was honored recently to be elected treasurer of the executive board of the Low Country Council of Governments. And that was I was very honored by that. I can go on, but I mean, I've just countless events I've been to, but I'm gonna leave it there. And I'd like to make a motion at this time to go into executive session pursuant to Title 30, Chapter 4, Section 70A2 of the South Carolina Codes of Law, discussion of negotiations, incident to propose contractual arrangements and propose sale or purchase of property, the receipt of legal advice where the legal advice relates to a pending, threatened, or potential claim, or other matters covered by the attorney-client privilege, settlement of legal claims, or the position of the public agency and other adversary situations involving the assertion against the agency of a claim for number one, the FOIA investigation, number two, parcel K in the Beaufort Commerce Park. Also pursuant to Title 30, Chapter 4, Section 70A1 of the South Carolina Codes of Law, discussion of employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, or release of an employee, a student, or a person regulated by a public body, or the appointment of person to a public body. Number one, the Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer Authority Board of Directors. Two, Planning Commission. Three, municipal judges.
Okay, all in favor of going into executive session?
You need a
Need
second.
motion. Need a motion.
No. We need a second. No. No. We need a second.
Wait, we need a second.
Second.
You can talk to him. You can
Second.
talk to him after this.
Take a vote.
Got a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Going into